All right, everybody. I think we're going to get going.
Great chatting, Shelley.
Yes, very nice chatting. I'm sure we'll
uh,
have more discussion as the night goes on here, for
all,
sure.
all right. So I'm sure some more people are going to trickle in. We're creeping on 40 people, about half of what was RSVP'd. But what I found with the Zooms is people kind of come as they free up, and the number probably will be closer to what RSV number was in about 15 minutes. So we won't wait for all those people. You'll want to, anybody who's not talking, you may want to mute while the presentation's going on. We always catch some people having conversations or something happening in the background, and uh, sometimes it can be an awkward situation. So you don't want to be that guy or gal. Nobody likes that one. So keep yourself on mute. In the Zoom world, all things can happen. So if you're on a phone or something like that, be careful where you take your Zoom presentation. You never know what we catch in the camera. If you look it up on online about Zoom mishaps, there's kind of some funny pictures. I'm just gonna admit some more people in here. All right. So, for those of you that are visiting us for the first time, it's Edmonton Real Estate Investors Association. Now we have a vision and a mission for our group, and that is financial freedom through real estate investing is attainable for everyone. That's our mission or our vision. Our mission is to create a community of real estate investors and promote an environment that encourages learning, sharing opportunities, and building relationships. It's a little bit more of a challenge in the Zoom world, but we do what we can. And we hope you take some value from it. You can also find us on facebook.com/EREIA, where we from time to time post some information about the meetings coming up and different news articles. The show is put on by these folks here. I'll start at the bottom. Linda Hayes is our newest director, and you'll hear from her shortly. Dan Piercy, those of you that have been listening, he's been chatting. He's our board mortgage broker, I guess you can say. Lana, she is our secretary and keeps the rest of us in line. Walter is our treasurer. Since we've moved to Zoom, he hasn't needed to be at the back of the room collecting dollars and being security. So I'm sure he's a little bored with his role these days. Or it's a nice break. Shanna Badri is my VP, and she helps us with a lot of efficiencies and process items within the chapter. And then myself, I have the pleasure of being the president, and in my third or fourth term, I lose track, but it's been a lot of fun. Disclaimer, no matter who's presenting, we always have a disclaimer. Those that are regulars recognize the fact that every month we have a guest speaker. Some guest speakers provide more, I guess, particular advice than others, and some it's more just an information base. So no matter what you hear from me, from Dan, from anybody else who's speaking, make sure you do your due diligence. Same if I know there's going to be some chat in the comment section tonight. There always is. And some opportunities pop up in that chat. Make sure that you do some due diligence on anything that comes up there. Same as our steals and deals round at the end. All right, if you're new to our association or to our meeting, stand up. That doesn't have the same cachet. Usually in person, we have everybody stand up and we clap for them. I clap for you, we'll clap, jazz hands. If it's your first time, thank you for coming out. Hopefully you take something, not hopefully, I know you'll take something from today's meeting. And we hope that you come back. So what to expect tonight? So action takers. So off the top, we're gonna ask anybody who has taken action over the last, now it's been 60 days since our last meeting, who's bought a place, who's made some offers, who's got at least pre-approved, who's done something to push their or grow their real estate world or portfolio. Then we'll move into our market update. We'll touch on the real estate market, mortgage rates, and then Alinda will have some chat on some different economic items, news items, and then we'll take a quick little stretch break, and then we'll have our guest speaker, Shelley Hagen. And so the chat for today will be, of course, foreclosures and you know, why I deal with foreclosures, how they're handled in Canada, the cycle, finding them, the lien hold priority and strategies for foreclosure. So it's always a good chat. People always ask me about foreclosures. I at one time was the sole, I guess, vendor that handled MCAP foreclosures in the kind of northern Alberta region. I learned over those years a lot about foreclosures, the good and the bad. And then we'll close with some deals and steals, where we give everybody a little bit of mic time, and you can tell us about a deal that you have on the cooker, and maybe somebody in the Zoom may be interested in helping you out or becoming a partner with you, or maybe just some advice on any kind of situation. So first, our action takers. So what I'll do is I'll get you to unmute yourself. Tell us about what kind of action you took over, and this slide says 30, let's say over the last 60 days, over the summer when the market's been very busy. Have you made an offer, took possession, started a flip, committed to a joint venture, maybe just got pre-approved and you're ready to hop on something, or you know, just been shopping for property. So don't be shy. Unmute yourself and let's hear from you. One at a time. Or I'll be calling names out to say, what did you do in the last 60 days?
Hi, everybody. I'm Janine, and my husband and I, we've gotten pre-approved, and we've looked at several properties, and we put 2 offers in, both fell through, but we are continuing the hunt. So we're pretty sure something is going to happen soon. Thanks.
Perfect. You got to put those offers in, and over the summer I've had many losses in bidding wars, and so you don't win them all. Anybody else? If you're talking, we can't hear you, so I make sure you unmute yourself. My favorite name out there is the one that I see under Mr. Awesome Rick. He wins the prize for the best name in the book. Him, and a close second is Dan that says Charlene.
So I'll go.
Sure.
Recently, my partner and I, business partner, started a flip about probably 12 weeks ago. We just sold our place, closed on it yesterday, and didn't even have to go to market, which is great. So kind of capitalized on that late summer rush for buyers. So yeah, turned out to be a really good deal for us.
Perfect. Most people that I talked to that were, you know, on the about to, you know, pondering selling, I said, you know, hop in, you know, anybody I talked to in June and July, I said, get her on the market ASAP, because we may hit a wall at some point, so get it sold when exactly. the market is hot. Anybody else? Make sure you tell us your name and before you start, so we know who we're talking to.
I can talk about something that's not exactly buying a house, but I actually finally sold one of my rentals that I have. But unfortunately, it was a lot lower price than I wanted to sell it for. But regardless, it gives me some cash. And what I've been doing right now with the cash is buying a whole bunch of the furnishings for my new tiny home rental that will come online hopefully sooner rather than later, but likely sometime in the winter. So just getting all the furniture that's on sale now kind of purchased because there's so many good deals. So
Perfect. Yeah, sometimes taking action just means, taking your lumps and getting some cash out and moving the money. Sometimes you just have to. I have a client that has a few rental properties, and they're trying to, they're going to be putting them on the market, or they'll probably sell before the market, but it's just a matter of taking out some equity and unloading some properties and leaving something on the plate for the next person. Anybody else out there? All right, everybody's shy, or everybody took the summer off. You take any action this summer, Dan, other than golfing?
Busy mortgage business, and great summer for balance for doing things you love to do. So it's no real estate activity, but staying busy.
Perfect. Well, we'll move on from the action taker and we'll move into our presentation. So we'll start with our news and events, and Linda will kick us off with her portion. So I'm just gonna adjust this so I can help guide her presentation. So I think this is the first slide. There we go, news update. Linda, you ready?
yes. Oh, except the slide is not on the first one, but no, that's okay. I guess that's the first slide that has content on it.
You want to start here?
Yeah, sure. Just that way I knew I was on the first one because I always forget which order I put stuff in. Perfect. So now, can I keep clicking or you click?
I'll click. Just let me know.
Okay, perfect. Okay. All right, so the first slide that I have is about the reopening. So I'm sure everyone's aware schools have reopened, but some have already closed down again because of COVID cases. So this is one thing that we're I guess the province is watching quite a bit because they want to see what happens with this before they determine what's going to happen in phase 3. There are some rules that are no longer in effect, which helps us as investors likely, because there was a lot of things we couldn't do as landlords because of the pandemic. So on the Residential Tenant Dispute Board website, these things have now changed. So you're now allowed to do scheduled rent increases. Again, all these things have to follow the regular rules, but before that you couldn't even do this. Late fees are allowed to be charged if they're in the lease. And you also no longer have to demonstrate a payment plan to file an application to terminate a tenancy, which you were having to do in the past. So that's kind of good news. We're a little bit back to normal with that. So that's kind of a nice thing to have. In terms of a new thing that I discovered as I was researching some of the news, this one's one that Shannon and I talked about quite a bit today because it's kind of a small amount, but it has a potential big impact for many people. So if you have an Edmonton business, you've been struggling, your revenue's down, if you want to get new customers by doing something like building a website, installing a customer walk-up window, buying safety equipment, production or manufacturing equipment, there's grants available. I don't know if anyone has heard of this. I had not heard of it at all until I just researched different websites. So right now in phase 1 for 2020, basically they call it a micro grant. And you would have to have $1,000 to spend on something, and then they can give you a grant of $1,000 as well. So that's up till December 31st, you can apply, and they say they're going to accept a certain number of applications per week, and you can keep applying if you don't get accepted in the first week. So for example, say you wanted to create a website for your business. If you could find someone to do it for $2,000, you would only be paying $1,000 of it if they accept your application. So that's kind of nice for any of the marketing materials we may want to do. So Shannon and I were kind of brainstorming stuff you could use that for. But the bigger one is if you don't want to apply for this $1,000 one this year, and you can't do both for one business, in 2021, they have phase 2, which is meant to be a longer term diversification initiative. There they can match up to $25,000. So if you have like a $50,000 expense to diversify your business, then you can get that matching grant. So one of the rules is you have to have a business license if one is required. So all our Airbnb properties have that. So of course we need that thing. If you have a long-term rental without a license, then that obviously could be an issue because as I think I mentioned a couple months ago in the news, the city of Edmonton does say you need a business license for long-term rentals as well. So like I said, you can only apply for either phase 1 or phase 2. So that's probably going to help some people, I guess, in the presentation, hopefully. So the CEBA loans I wanted to talk about as well for small businesses. So the program has been extended till October 31st, 2020. So if you are able to apply and you haven't yet, you still can do so. Originally, they had said you had to have payroll expenses, and they changed that because that didn't help for a lot of small businesses that didn't pay salaries to themselves. They might have paid dividends, those kind of things. But the rule then changed to say, as long as you have expenses between $40,000 and $1.5 million in 2020, you could apply for the loan. And if you could get this loan, it would be crazy not to, because basically it's 0 interest until December 2022. And if you fully repay it by then, up to $10,000 is forgiven. So this is $10,000 of free money. So if you can qualify, it would be crazy not to do this. You do need a business bank account to be able to do this, and you apply through the bank that has your business account. So I actually got my funding of my CEBA loan in the middle of August, and I know Shanna's got some too. So this can apply for your rental business as long as it's in a business account. So that might help people as well. So there's a couple there wasn't very much on the Alberta government update, but there's a little bit of funding for some infrastructure projects. Drayton Valley has a net zero aquatic facility that's coming. If you have any investments there, in Fort Saskatchewan, there's a waste gas burner facility. Edmonton, there's a community league and some community league activities. So if you have investments in any of those areas, of course, that could help with getting tenants. But other than that, not too much impact. And then there's also green construction grants too for energy efficient construction. So anyone who's building, that's something you can look into as well. On the next slide. So if you've seen a lot of construction, I live in the West End in Lewis Estates, and my rental properties in Rosenthal, and you can see the tons of stuff as you're driving on the Henday too, where there's a whole bunch of construction. And basically what's a lot of the construction you may be seeing is a plan that EPCOR is doing to get ready for the future Valley Line West LRT. So they're scheduled to do this work up till 2022 to relocate the power, water, and drainage utilities. So that's kind of good news. Valley Line West is in the procurement phase now, and they're planning, and of course this could always change, but still on the website it says they plan to start in 2021 and then complete in 5 to 6 years. But we know, I mean, depending on funding, that could obviously change. Terwilliger Drive expansion is beginning, obviously, so that's a good thing. There was basically the government of Alberta asked the city for a whole bunch of different projects to bring forward that were shovel ready, and this is one that did get approved. We were trying to get the Rosenthal Community League, or the community, the rec center, I guess it's called, approved, but that one didn't go through. And one other news thing, I don't even know if people were aware of this, but Edmonton was supposed to have a new bus network that was going to start this fall. And if you weren't aware, it can completely change your bus routes, your bus stops, everything. So I looked at this quite a bit last year, and they've delayed this till mid-2021. And I look at this quite a bit because a lot of my tenants ask me, is there good bus service in your neighborhood? Because I'm in the new area, it often changes quite a bit. So I kind of look at that quite a bit myself. And Trans Mountain, Edmonton construction's near complete. So they're about 45 out of the 50 kilometers done. Some of my tenants are telling me they should be done by December in Edmonton. And so, but then interestingly enough, I have one person that just said, hey, I need somewhere to stay until December till all this is up. So I just got a new booking for October all the way till December from another employee. So I'm still keeping busy with those people. So that's kind of nice in my rental portfolio. Okay, and a couple other things. I'm sure everyone's heard the news about the Alberta budget deficit being the largest in Canada in percentage terms in more than 3 decades. The real estate article that I read basically said Edmonton unemployment rate in August was 13.6%, so down 1.4% from July. So that's terrible. Stats Can only reports the Alberta numbers, so I had to find it from the real estate article. But for Alberta, 11.8%, down 1% from July 2020. So obviously, we already know that this is really bad, and it's obviously could continue to get worse, but we'll see what happens with that. And that would be all for me.
Thanks, Linda. Always some great information there. Next is the real estate market. And what I typically have is I have a real estate coach, and we share this information with our realtors that work for my brokerage. And it's some useful information. And as investors, you know, especially the active investors are always kind of needing to keep, you know, close eyes on where the market is going and where it's been recently. And so this following video will give you some stats for the immediate summer that we just had, maybe a glimpse into what to expect, and then also some touches on where the market has been over this past year.
What I want to do is I want to show you what's happened throughout the year, but what I've also done, I've added a couple slides at the end because I've broken down your different property types. In other words, the detached, the condo apartments, right? And I want to show you what is happening with the percentage of sales, okay, this year or this August over last August. But also what I want to show you, I'm going to show you what's happened with prices of each particular property type. And I'll tell you, it's going to show you a lot as to what's going on in the market right now. So anyway, if we look here, obviously we got January through August, we got sales, we got active listings, months of inventory, average price in days on market. You can always download these if you want to have a closer look. Obviously, 1,166 in March, that's when COVID, you know, came in about the middle of March. Look what happened in April. We dropped to 750. So our sales went down substantially. Then they started to go back up. May 1157, June up over 2,000. We got July 2166, and then of course August we slipped by about 13%. But when I show you, that's still up substantially over August of last year. But if you look at your months of inventory, and when I get to the months of inventory chart about the third slide in, you're going to see that you're sitting at the lowest right now you've been in like 3.5 years. But you can see we're here about 6.2. You know, we started 7.8, and again, below 4 is the seller's market. 4 to 6 is balance. Above 6 is going to be more in buyer's territory. So you can see what's going on here. You know, we're just slightly into buyer's territory. But look what happened in April. Went all the way to 9.6. Then we came back down to 6.7. But look what's happening since. 3.9, 3.6, and 4. Absolutely amazing what's going on. And even month over month, your prices were up by 1%. Now, let's look at this. 2019 to 2024, the month of August. You can see we did 1571 last year, but look at this, 1881. That's up by 19.7%. So August of this year was substantially stronger than August of last year. What about prices? Year over year, your prices are up by 1.9%. Now here's what I wanted to show you. This is your months of inventory for, you know, from 2017 right up until August of this year. And look at this. If you look at all of those lines right there, look where you are right here. You're at 4. Last year at this time, you're at 5.6. So really, you were sort of right on the balance to buyers market. Now you're sitting at 4, which is right on the bottom line of balance to more sellers. Really cool what's happening right here. Look what's going on in terms of different property types. We got detached, we got condos, and we got duplex and row. So look at this. Your sales were up August of 19 to 20 by 23%. Big number. That's in detached. Look what happened in condo. It was down by 1%. So it actually went down. And then, of course, duplex and row up by 57%. So what do you think the cause is? Why is this going on? And, of course, this going on right here? Well, think about it. If you think about the whole COVID deal that we've been dealing with now for a long time, there's probably a lot of people want to get out of what? High-density housing. Plus, in the city of Edmonton, they can probably afford detached, which in a lot of bigger cities like Toronto, Vancouver, is not always possible. So they do have options. Plus, a lot of people are working at home. So guess what they need? They need more space, right? They need to have maybe a home office. They've got kids at home sometimes right now, so they're looking for a little more space. So I think you're going to see more of this happening right here, and probably more of this happening for the next few months. What about prices? Look at this. Detached, last August was $435. Now we're at $440, up by 1.1%. Condos, look at, they're down by 2.1% year over year. And of course, down duplex and row are down by 3.7%. This one's a little bit surprising. I thought this would have been up, but you can see what's going on here with your detached home. So anyway, we're looking into the fall. The market has recovered very well. Edmonton now has, in terms of price, the strongest market that you've had in about 3.5 years. I think that trend is going to continue at least for the next few months. Why? Interest rates are really low. In August, Canada added over 200,000 jobs, and at the high point, our unemployment rate hit about 13.5%, and now it's down just hovering just over 10. So it's definitely moving in the right direction. So I look at it and say, I think this fall is going to be fairly strong. Who knows what's going to happen when we get late into the fall? Obviously, the government is going to stop spending a lot of money and trying to keep the economy up, but they'll continue maybe with some of their programs. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. But I'm so glad that unemployment is starting to come down. Interest rates really low. But I look at it and say, I think the detached market is where the opportunity is right now. Anyway, remember, everybody, it's a beautiful life. Make it count.
All right, so hopefully there's some good value there for you. What I can tell you from personal, being on the front line with real estate is that, well, for one, and some of you may have caught this at the beginning where I said, I would have bet the farm that we would have been in a bit of a slump over the summer. But there obviously was pent-up demand from the spring. The numbers were pretty quiet in April and May in comparison to other years, and usually you can always bet that April and May will be a strong time for the markets. So basically, I got pushed over summer, and the COVID actually kept the inventory in check. On the one slide, you can see that the inventory was going to be at a high level, higher than the last few years. And COVID actually saved us from over inventory. So I know, talking to a lot of retail clients and investor clients, a lot of people said, well, we're just gonna, instead of putting it on the market, we'll just keep it rented, or we'll stay where we're at. So that happened, but the people that had to move or really wanted to move did over summer, and the numbers don't lie, with the strongest July and August in recent history, despite a pandemic. But that being said, I would be very careful in how you approach purchasing. I guess statistically, it looks like in some pockets it would be a bit of a buyer's market and some a seller's market, but do your due diligence before you jump into something. I've been in many bidding wars over the summer, and in many situations I told my clients, let's just walk away. Whoever's willing to pay that is gonna have some deep regret in 6 months, maybe a year, maybe 3 years, but definitely some regret. So be very careful. Make sure that whoever's advising you is taking your personal interest to heart. All right. Speaking of your personal interest to heart is Dan who always has people's best interest at heart. So Dan, I'll let you start your presentation.
All right, thanks, Ivan. If you can go to my first slide, and I'm happy to report that I have some wonderful news. In the past, I've always been perhaps the bearer of bad news, but today I've got some wonderful news. Bank of Canada interest rates. As you can see, the announcement was today, September the 9th. And as promised, the Bank of Canada held its overnight rate at the effective rate of 25 basis points, or a quarter point, and with the clear notion that negative policy rates are not in the cards. And I think that's really, really important, because once you go into the negative territory, what can you do to ease economy pressures? You don't have any room to go whatsoever. So what the central bank is doing instead is that they're basically relying on large-scale asset purchases, also known as quantitative easing. And what they're spending right now is at least $5 billion per week of Government of Canada bonds. Yeah, that's $5 billion per week. So the bank began aggressive quantitative easing with the beginning of the pandemic, and will not cease in doing so until the economy has recovered and inflation is sustainable at 2%. How long could this be? It could be years before anything changes. For example, and I know Linda touched on it, but in Ontario has paused reopening plans with the virus numbers ticking up. Many public health officials are expecting infections to rise with the opening of schools, and guess what? That has happened in Edmonton. And of course, what's going to happen when the weather turns colder, especially in Edmonton? People are going to be more confined to indoor locations as well. So the government is preparing for perhaps that second wave that some of us have been anticipating, but policymakers with the government have dialed back their language on more aggressive action than the quantitative easing. So that is good news in terms of the interest rate staying low. The next two dates for the remainder of the year are October 28th and December the 9th. Again, where do the experts predict interest rates going? It's not really a mixed bag. Most experts are predicting status quo for at least the next 2 years. So the current prime lending rate currently sits at 2.45%. Next slide, please, Ivan. Where are bond yields? Bond yields are so low at 0.39%. And it's unbelievable that they have remained this low for so long. And as you know, the 5-year fixed rates are directly tied to where the bond rates are headed right now. So 0.39%. Next slide, please. Okay, back on August the 11th, the federal government made another announcement in that they were relieving or de-stressing the stress test, perhaps. So the posted mortgage rate now sits at 4.79%. However, this is more than 100% higher than the actual contract rate. But with any luck, this quantifying rate for mortgage distress will continue to ease in the coming months. What this difference meant from 4.79 from 4.94 represents an increased purchasing power of around $5,000 for the average family. And again, the Bank of Canada will remain extremely accommodating. As per Dr. Sherry Cooper, rates will probably not rise until 2022, if at all. Next slide, please. Okay, so what is going to happen with the deferral program? The mortgage insurer is cool to extending 6-month pandemic payment deferrals. There's 3 insurers in Canada, CMHC, Genworth, and Canada Guarantee. More than 760,000 borrowers have deferred or skipped a mortgage payment. Alberta has the highest rate of deferrals. Approximately 1 in 5 mortgages have gone into deferral. Next highest deferral rates are Saskatchewan and Newfoundland, tied at 14.8%, and Quebec, surprisingly, has the lowest at 5.6%. However, deferrals represent 16% of mortgages in bank portfolios. This is the key. Deferral programs are not guaranteed to be renewed. The current program, which was in place for 6 months, officially ends at the end of September. The excessive debt could curb Canada's overall economic recovery, as money that could be spent elsewhere is channeled again towards loan repayments, such as mortgages. Next slide, please. How do we avoid that cliff? So if 6-month payment deferrals end in September, tens of thousands of homeowners will or could default on their mortgages if they have not been able to regain employment to pay those debts. CMHC calls this a looming deferral cliff. Analysts are urging the government to step in with no announcement yet. However, in other countries, Australia and the UK, regulators recently announced extension to programs. International regulators often follow one another during crises. So hopefully what happened in the UK and Australia could follow suit in Canada. I spoke to someone at Genworth this week a number of times to try to get the latest and greatest in terms of what they were doing. And the number of files on the desks in Edmonton are in the hundreds right now that are possibly going into mortgage default. And they're very, very concerned about what could happen after September the 30th. Now, if you are facing severe financial distress, not just due to COVID, but to other financial reasons, Genworth, amongst all 2 other insurers, do have programs to help homeowners experience temporary financial difficulties, which could put their mortgages at risk. Some of these common situations are job loss or reduced income, exactly COVID, perhaps a marital separation, or an unexpected illness or disability, which can cause problems paying your mortgage. Keep in mind, lenders do not want to own your homes. They want to make sure that every possible avenue is taken before they get into that final repossession of your home process. So with Genworth and other insurers, there are a number of solutions. The first thing to do is not put your head in the sand like an ostrich. Face the situation and come up with an action plan. Some of the common options that are offered by the insurers: capitalized arrears, increase the amortization period to stretch it over a longer period of time to make your payment smaller, partial or shared payment plan so at least something is being paid, deferment payments as we have seen through COVID, or perhaps even restructuring your mortgage altogether, similar to what a refinance may be. So again, if you are experiencing any types of these problems, address it immediately, speak to your broker, speak to your lender, speak to your insurer, get the ball rolling to find out what options are available to you. Next slide, please. Wow. Canada's debt passes $1 trillion for the first time ever. Emergency income subsidies prevent mortgage defaults, which avoids longer-term damage to the economy, but the price tag is extreme. Pandemic support programs more than double the bailout of the average G20 country relative to GDP. Surging money requirements will cause inflation and/or credit rating cuts. Did you know that Canada's credit rating has already been reduced during the COVID pandemic? Canada's borrowing costs will rise due to the credit rating loss of Canada. Good news, our debt to GDP ratio is below other G7 countries, and we're years away from it catching up with us. That's one good sign that we have. Our current position encourages more free spending in Ottawa, which is not a great thing, but it's a fact. They have the ability to do that. But to be fair, however, the alternative, letting customers and businesses go insolvent, would be a terrible alternative. For now, the market is shrugging off Canada's soon-to-be 13-figure debt of $1 trillion. Next slide, please. Okay, crystal ball time. Canadian interest rate forecast to the year 2022. We all know Canadian economy is in a recession, and unemployment is now between 10 and 13%, depending on how you choose to measure it. In March, the Bank of Canada reduced its target rate by 1.75 to 0.25% in an extraordinary effort to cushion the economy against the impact of the coronavirus. Bank of Canada rate is linked to variable rate mortgages, and the Bank of Canada target rate is at its effective lower bound. Canadians shouldn't expect further rate drops. I can't see it going below 0.25%. That would take us into the negative territory. Most economists expect variable rates will stay low for at least 2 years, and that the 5-year rates will start to rise in early 2021. But again, who thought coronavirus would happen? Who thought the world would go into a pandemic? These are just estimates and forecasts. So where are rates today? Rates are historically all-time lows. We're seeing rates right now on fixed rate mortgages, and this is not on rental properties. These are insured mortgages where borrowers are putting down less than a 20% down payment. On a 5-year fixed term with standard terms and conditions, we're seeing rates as low as 1.89%. Anything under 3% years ago, we were saying, take the money and run. Now it's 2% to 2.19%. 5-year variable rates are prime, which is 2.45, less 0.65. That's actually out of date as of now, as of 15 minutes ago. We're seeing rates right now as low as 0.75 off of prime on insured mortgages. Rentals, lenders are still surcharging on the rental interest rates. Why? Because the risk on rental properties is higher. For those who have never attended one of these meetings, people would say, why is that possible? Well, the basic reason is this. If you as a landlord and also an owner of a primary residence ran into financial difficulty yourself, what would be the first property you would not pay your mortgage on? Would it be your principal residence or would it be your rental property? It would be your rental property. That's why there's a higher risk and a higher interest rate on rental properties. And refinances, which are extremely popular, also have a slight surcharge of 15 to 25 basis points. But again, in a lot of cases, when we're doing mortgages for clients, people are saying money's free right now. Well, it is very inexpensive, but don't fall into that trap of overextending yourself and taking yourself to the maximum of your TDS and your GDS ratios, because something could happen and you might not be prepared for that. Again, speak to your broker. There's always unpublished rates that are not available through major institutions. That's basically my presentation today. Hopefully there was some really good news for you there as well. There's also some cautionary points. Again, don't overextend yourself. I think one message that's going to be loud and clear that people are going to be experiencing once we do get through this pandemic is have an emergency fund. Have 3, 6, perhaps 9 months of funds available to you to take you through unexpected emergencies. That's my advice for tonight. Thank you.
Anybody have any questions for Dan or even myself? Unmute yourself and ask away.
I see a comment from Mr. Awesome Rick to everyone. Lenders are being very tight on rental properties. Yes, they are, but it's not just rental properties. We're seeing extra due diligence on all files right now. The biggest thing is, the first question we have to ask is, have you received any type of financial assistance in the past? Specifically talking about CERB. And what is your ability to maintain a job to basically take you through to pay that financial obligation? But yes, lenders are taking more time. They're scrutinizing files. Sometimes they're going for extra underwriting policies, which makes it very, very frustrating for buyers and for the brokers.
Dan, you mentioned earlier that the appraisals for people who are trying to take out equity out of their properties. So they're being extra conservative, I imagine, on how much money they'll give you out of your equity.
100% correct. And that is especially true on rural properties. But that's kind of a little bit of an oxymoron when it comes to properties and the whole COVID and people wanting to become less concentrated in urban populations. Have you seen, Ivan, at all a surge towards people buying rural properties?
You know what, in June, I want to say that there was people wanting to move out, and you know, I think part of that was you know, some of it was out of fear, and some of it was, you know, maybe people just thinking, oh, you know, it's time now. You know, if we're gonna be quarantined or stuck in our homes for a long time, you know, we should try to have a chunk of land so that we have some space to roam. Mm-hmm. I think that has cooled down now, but I could be wrong. I haven't dealt much in that demographic, you know, since June. So over the summer, I was busy elsewhere. So
But coming back to your point about appraisal values, most people think their homes are worth more than they actually are, and they can be in for quite a surprise and a shock when they actually see the appraised value if it comes back for refinancing purposes. And again, the maximum you can take out on any refinance is back up to 80% loan to value.
Yeah, everybody always overestimates their value. I've had somebody's mic there. I've had a few clients looking at properties south of the Henday, and as we search for properties, we're looking at the history, and I've seen probably 40, 50 properties where their asking price is pretty much where they built or bought at in 2012. So a lot of those properties, they're still for sale, but the people are gonna take a bit of a beating on any money that they had in equity from mortgage pay down or from their mortgage or from their down payments when they purchased it. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's for some it can be scary. Some people are in good shape, so it's but just make sure that you are cautious in your finances, right, Dan?
Don't overextend yourself, please. Don't take your maximum ratios to your 44 and your 39%. It's something that perhaps, I mean, young people especially, the newness of a brand new home is going to wear off pretty darn quickly if they don't have any budget for entertainment or going out with their friends or going away on a vacation. Again, I caution them, please be realistic with learning to crawl, learning to walk, learning to jog, learning to run. Your first house is not your final home.
Hey, Dan, quick question for you.
Yes.
What's your feel on commercial properties going forward?
Well, if you had asked me a year ago, I would have said I wish personally I had diversified my portfolio and gotten into perhaps a combination of commercial and residential. But when the pandemic hit, I tell you, I was so glad that I was not involved in commercial real estate. And I've not had any vacancies during the pandemic. I've actually had 2 tenants change over during the pandemic without difficulty and actually able to increase my rents. So that talks about the residential side. The commercial side, I don't do any brokering in that field, but I know some of the brokers in our office right now are very, very slow when it comes to commercial properties.
And especially in rural?
In rural?
It's smashed potato.
Yeah. Like out of town, some of these smaller towns, Westlock and so forth?
Oh, again, I have no exposure or no experience in those areas. I can't comment.
Okay.
But the commercial lenders are leery of rural communities, and they'll be extra leery right now. I've talked to many commercial. I don't delve in commercial much at all. I have a business partner that handles it, but there's a lot of concern in the commercial world as a lot of companies are continue to have conversations on how much I guess space they need and whether they need as much space as they have, and so there's lots of companies that are trying to downsize their commercial footprint, and because there's going to be a portion of their work their staff that are going to be working from home. So whether that is a forever thing or just some pause from the pandemic and that it may level off somewhat, but I do believe that some of it will stick. I have a client that works for a company, and he's been told that he will work from home indefinitely, no matter how things change over the next year. So commercial will have changed, maybe not for good, but for a while.
I share that same sentiment, Ivan. My wife now will be working from home until she retires.
Yeah.
So it's a great thing for us. Wonderful.
Oh yeah, great together time.
I didn't say that, Kurt. I just said it's wonderful. Talking about commute time and sleeping in time and, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
We'll see if you're smiling 3 months from now on a 3-month meeting.
Okay.
Well, we'll continue our chatter here. For those of you who need to stretch your legs, we'll go grab top up your drink, and then when we get back here in 2 minutes, we will let Shelley take the floor. And while we wait, you can feel free to look through her bio here, and we'll go from there. So we'll take a 2-minute pause. Somebody's mic is a little buzzy. Maybe I'll get everybody to yeah. All right, folks. Shelley, are you ready out there? Can anybody hear me?
Yes, your mic is on.
Perfect. Well, if you guys haven't taken a chance, Shelley is a full-time real estate investor. I'm not going to read this whole thing. It's up there. But she's been in the business for some time, and she has a very diverse background, and even some diversity from where she lived, spending some time in Fort Worth, Texas. We'll have to ask her if she used to, pack anything in the purse when she lived in Texas. But we've been lucky enough to have Shelley speak on a different topic in the past. Lana reached out to Shelley, and foreclosure seemed to be a good topic. Unfortunately, we may see a jump in foreclosures over the next 6 months. I'm not sure. I know that I've sold a few foreclosures for TD this year. I just received another one today for a house that I will be putting on the market in Spruce Grove for TD. So now the current level of foreclosures in Edmonton isn't out of whack quite yet, but that may still be coming. Shelley, if you're out there, unmute yourself, and we'll.
Great. Thank you, Ivan. Thank you.
No problem.
Very nice to be here. Thank you very much, Lona and Ivan, for the invitation to come back and speak to everybody. Some of you probably know me from past presentations here and other groups that I've done presentations for in the past. And I'm just going to introduce myself for those of you who don't know who I am. And I'm here to talk this evening about the PowerPoint, or sorry, about foreclosures. I was just going to ask about the PowerPoint. Ivan, can I control the PowerPoint?
I can give you the power of, one sec here.
Okay. Well, the great thing is both Ivan and Dan actually did some of the market analysis for me already that I put into the presentation. So I don't need to spend a whole lot of time about that. I'm going to, talk in general about that and how it relates to the topic at hand tonight, which is foreclosures. So that was good. And
Okay, so I've made you the host. I'll get you to make me the host back when you're done.
okay. All right, so so just use the one that's on my screen.
Oh, okay, so you'll have to share your screen then.
Okay. All right, let's go here.
I'll stop my share.
All right, there we are. Thank you. And keep the timing going as we go along. So as you can see by my background, I've changed it to sitting on the beach because I really, would like to be somewhere, but with COVID, who knows when I'm going to get a chance to go back to the beach. But that is the opportunity, hopefully in the future. So I live in Calgary, Alberta. I have done business in many different provinces in Canada. I used to work for SaskTel in Regina, Saskatchewan, and I had been there for about 20 years. And I moved all over the province. I've, lived in Spooker, North Battleford, Saskatoon a couple times, Regina a couple times. And I had moved up into middle management position. When I took a look around, once I kind of got there, I went, there's not really a whole lot of places I wanted to go from there. And there was a decrease in those jobs. And I'd always had an interest in leaving the organization. In fact, 10 years before I was going to leave, and my boss found out I was leaving, gave me a big promotion, gave me some money. I ended up moving to Saskatoon. And so I never ever did go, but it was time. I needed to move on and do something else. And at the time I was working with my friend, Carol McConaughey, and Carol and I both were single, no husbands, no kids at that time. And we kind of looked around and went, what do we want to do? Life after SaskTel. And both of us had an interest in doing real estate investing. And, it was really interesting to me because I'd known Carol for a long time. We worked together for ages, and we'd never, ever had a conversation about real estate investing. But it was always a personal interest of mine and a personal interest of hers. So we had worked there for a long time. We had lots of business experience and management experience. And we decided that we would take an opportunity to invest in us, in our future. So we went out and looked for some training because we worked in the large organization. I used to work in the training department. I thought, well, let's go see if we can get some education and help us, take a few steps forward a little quicker. And that's what we ended up doing. We ended up going to one of the seminar companies that you probably have all heard about. And yes, the information does work, and, we're kind of living proof. We continue to invest in ourselves, certainly reading and going to different courses, personal development, mindset, all kinds of things. We had a motto when we started, and it was go big or go home. So as a result of that, in the first year, we just nose to the grindstone, off we went, and we bought ourselves 96 units, single family, multi-units. 48 of those were in Regina, in what we affectionately called the hood. And they were low-income housing. And we started there, and we also bought 48 units in Gatineau, Quebec. And we just never really looked back from there. In 2002, we were inducted into Hall of Fame for investing excellence. We had investments started in Saskatchewan and Quebec, but I've also owned commercial property in Manitoba. I've owned all kinds of properties in Alberta and in some land development properties in British Columbia, as well as investing in the United States. We lived in Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas for some time, and We've been back and forth in Arizona. In fact, my business partner, Carol, made the move in 2005 to Arizona, and I moved to Calgary. And people always ask me, why did I not go to Arizona? Well, for one thing, I don't like the heat there during the summer. It's way too hot for me. I'd much rather, be here in Saskatchewan. And I have a really large family and elderly parents, and I love living in Canada. So I go back and forth between there. I have also invested in properties in Michigan and Nevada. Also did some in Louisiana. We had spent a lot of time working in the United States, especially after the 2008 crash. And I'll make reference a little bit to that as far as, how that might play itself out going forward in the future. We've done, I don't even know how many deals. People ask me, I don't keep count actually at this particular point in time. Single family homes, multi-units, commercial property, land, rent owns, fix and flips, BRRRRs, wholesale. I still wholesale. I wholesale anything, actually. I do real estate. During COVID, I've actually been working a lot with the medical materials, masks and gloves, etc. I just have a very extensive network all over the world. I do help people as well with financing projects in non-traditional ways. I used to be a mortgage broker like Dan and probably a few others that are here. But a few years back when the crash came in the United States, I was just way too busy working on real estate in the US. I didn't have time to continue on with my business. So I decided to give up my license at that time. Sometimes I regret doing that, actually. It probably would be helpful in a lot of ways because I'd keep on top of a lot of the stuff that happens in the industry much easier by being a mortgage broker. But at the time it was a business decision, and there's only so many hours in a day and I can only spread myself so thin. I still do, though, help with funding. It is mostly project-based. A lot of it is related to groups that are doing real estate as well as development of commercial, or I have some people that I'm helping get some green energy stuff that is going. So I have a wide variety of things that I do. Discount notes. I've done a lot of different things over the years. As an entrepreneur, when the phone rings, it's business calling, and you never really know what it is it's going to call. And I think our motto should be, I'll figure it out. And that really is what happened with the medical supply stuff. People started calling me from my network saying, hey, do you know any place that I can get COVID test kits? And I went, no, what would I know about COVID test kits? I don't know anything. But I started getting so many phone calls on masks and gloves. And I said, I don't know right now, but I know people. I know a lot of people, and I know a lot of people all over the place. And my clientele is anywhere from Dubai to Singapore, all over the place. I just do a wide variety of stuff. And I also help people put together real estate deals. Odd time I'll get some kind of a commercial thing in Europe, like, 10 hotels that are in a package to be sold. So I love what it is that I do, because I have focus on real estate, but I have other things that have come along with it. And as you grow your business, you do need to grow multiple income streams, and you need to be focused. You can't be running out chasing every little shiny light that comes your way. But there's a lot of different ways to make money out there. And even today, when I'm going to talk to you about foreclosures, there's a lot of different ways to take a property that's in foreclosure and look at different opportunities to help either the homeowner stay in the home, because that's really what it's all about. I'm not here tonight to talk to you about stealing people's houses. And people tend to think that way when they're going to hear about foreclosures, because they think, oh, I'm just an ambulance chaser and I'm just following them around and I'm, waiting for them to fail. They got themselves in that problem, and I'm going to do what I can to either help them keep it or help me buy it, one way or the other. I am an ethical person. Talking about entrepreneurship, Michael Bloomberg says being an entrepreneur isn't really about starting a business. It's about a way of looking at the world, seeing opportunity where other people see obstacles. And that's no more prevalent than in foreclosures. It's about taking risks and when others are ready to take refuge, because people are afraid. And when you get into foreclosures, and Dan coined the phrase, putting your head in the sand, that's what I find a lot. People get themselves in and they don't know what to do and how to go forward, and they're just stuck. And they need people to come along and help them. And that's what we're here for. We're here to help people who have challenges with real estate and help try to find a solution. But we're not superheroes and we can't do everything. So we're going to do it the best that we possibly can to help them. So I have had the great opportunity to be a mentor and a trainer and a coach since about 2003. And I even did that when I worked at the phone company. I really am passionate about helping other people. And people come to me who want to change their life, do things better, help other people, and just, look at life from a different way. And that's what I really love to do. So I've been doing that in Canada and in the United States for, years, since 2003. 2015, I co-authored a book, and it's available on Kindle as well. And this was with a group of friends of mine that we did a book together. And it's basically about, the people that helped us, move ourselves forward in our life. The people always ask me, why did you get into real estate investing? I have to laugh because my friends really don't understand what it is I do. The people I worked at the phone company, they tell when they're introduced me when I'm at a party at their house, they'll go, well, this is our friend. She's unemployed. Does something with real estate. We're not quite sure what it is. And and people always say, well, what made you decide to go off and leave? Because I worked for a great company. I had been around for a long time. I could stay there and retired there, but I wanted more freedom. I wanted more time. I wanted to get out and do things with my family and friends. And I wanted financial freedom. I didn't want to be controlled by somebody else as to how much money I made, which I'm sure is why all of you are here. And it's not all about working, harder. It's all about how can I work smarter and how can I bring people in around me and my team that we can help each other go forward as well. So it's all about hard work. And just like anything, when you're getting into a new business and real estate and foreclosures, for example, you need to spend a little bit of time building your business. But I'm going to try to give you a few tips and things to help you so you're a little more aware of what to do. I am by far not the expert, guru. I don't even believe there are such things as gurus. I know quite a bit about foreclosures because I've done a lot of foreclosures. Probably each one of us here who've done foreclosures have a little bit different experience. I'm going to share what I have learned. I do recommend that you do want to have a lawyer that you can go to and get some assistance from as well. It is a legal process. You don't have to be a lawyer to understand foreclosures to help somebody, but you do need to have one there that can help you when you get stuck and give you a little bit of counsel as you go forward. And it's all about building some systems and teams that can help you. Now, when I talk about my real estate investing, I always talk about what I call the money pyramid, all these different ways that we can make money. And anything above this line is where we buy and sell to create cash, and below it is where we buy and sell to create wealth. But you'll notice that I don't have a box anywhere here that says foreclosures, because foreclosures are the umbrella that goes over the entire money pyramid. When you get a property that's in foreclosure, you need to look at what's your exit strategy. What are you going to do with it? And you should always have at least 2 exit strategies when you're taking a look at a property. So there's a wide variety of different things that you can do with the property. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that. I don't have a lot of time. I do like a 3-day workshop just on foreclosures alone, but I'm going to give you a bit of a highlights. So why foreclosures? What is a foreclosure? How are they handled in Canada? Because they are handled differently in each province, similar but different. I need to also have you understand what the foreclosure cycle is, because there's different ways to do deals depending on where it's at in the cycle. And you're going to be dealing with different people during that time as well. Also, how do you find foreclosures? How do you deal with lien holders that are on there? And what are some of the strategies kind of at a high level? So we've already talked about COVID. Dan and Ivan talked a little bit here about the market. As we know, it's really unknown at this time. But I do anticipate that this is not going to be an easy ride going forward. I do think that we're going to be in for some unprecedented things happening in our market that we probably haven't seen since the 80s. I did a lot of business in the United States during 2008, 2009 into 2010 when the crash came. And November of 2009 is when they hit bottom. And a lot of investors were sitting on the sidelines saying, oh, when it hits bottom, I'm gonna, get in and make a bunch of deals then. And I went, yeah, well, whatever. If you're a real estate investor, there's lots of ways to make money in that curve, in the real estate cycle. You can make money at the top, you can make money at the bottom. It's just all about tweaking things as you're going along. And if you sit and wait till the bottom, falls out, you're going to be way too late to the party and you're going to miss on a lot of stuff. But you do also need to be prudent, because this is different than we've ever been through before. And as Dan talked about, those deferred mortgage payments are coming to an end. Well, I don't think we're actually going to see the end of this as to what this actually is going to shake out to be till probably sometime at the end of the first quarter of next year, because I'm going to explain a little bit about the foreclosure process. First to second quarter next year, there's going to be people that are going to be in trouble this fall, don't get me wrong, but there's going to be some people that are going to be able to ride it out. And because the banks are going to have to do some things to try to work with people, and Dan, highlighted some of those things to show for the public, because they want to keep business. But banks are in the business of making money, and they can only go for so long where they're not making any money. And they've gone already, 6 months without making people making mortgage payments. I think, Dan, you said 1 in 5 people, have a deferred payment program. So they can't do this for much longer. The government is going to have to come in and extend the deferral program, most likely, but the government is also going to have to come in and bankroll the banks. We're going to see the same thing happen that happened in 2008, 2009, because the banks, if they start to crash, if we start to see, RBC and TD Bank, they're in the top 25 banks in the world now. If we start to see them crash, it's not going to be good for our economy. So if you take a look back at what happened in 2008, 2009, we're going to see the same things. Now, my investor friends and I do a lot of stuff with financial instruments and deal with people. And right now, everybody that had really big money have, put a lot of their stock portfolio on hold, and they've moved into financial instruments because they need to make money somehow. And there's a lot of money transferring hands right now behind the scenes, and a lot of stuff going on in the whole banking system because they're doing a bunch of changes. And so we were looking at this for the last 2 years, and we forecasted that probably in 2020, there was going to be, especially in the United States, another financial crisis. And then lo and behold, here comes COVID. Like, who in the heck would have ever thought COVID was coming? However, I do know people that were in meetings last summer that knew something was going to happen. They started getting money together and started buying medical equipment because they knew something was coming since August of last year. So there's stuff all going on. We don't know. And we don't know where this whole thing is going to shake out. Bankruptcies and foreclosures have not really reflected in the market yet. CMHC is forecasting a historic recession in 2020, and we really don't know where that's going to shake out. So we've already talked about the pent-up demand and what's been happening with Edmonton. Calgary is no better. In fact, we're worse off than you guys are as far as our sales. We had good sales during the summer as well, but we're still down a little bit more than you are in Edmonton. You've actually been, going further with that. Certainly Calgary, the unemployment rate is much higher. We really haven't recovered that well since 2015. Everybody is being cautious. There are opportunities for investors, but we also need to keep our eye on the ball, because what happened in the United States in 2008 is that a lot of people lost their jobs. And those people moved out of their rental units, and 2 and 3 families were living together. And that went on for a year to 2 years before those people could finally find jobs. And I was buying up rental property down there, and it was taking a while to get some of them filled. And those people that were moving in had been living with family for a long time. And they had, had a great job. Now, the husband and wife were both each working 2 part-time jobs in order to afford to get into rent. So you've got to keep an eye on what's going on with the economy and be prudent as well. So there's going to be opportunities. We're probably going to get into things that are similar to what happened at that particular point in time. Historically in Canada, foreclosure rates are usually less than 0.5%. And if you look at what was recorded at the end of the first quarter, I couldn't find the statistics for the end of the second quarter at this particular point in time. It's just too early yet. But they have indicated here, this is from one of the government websites, that, at that time we were still low. And even from what I'm seeing on the market at this particular point in time, we're still not seeing in the listings a huge increase yet in foreclosures. Things, because people have had mortgage deferrals, etc., things are going to start to move. For some reason, Saskatchewan is much higher than Alberta and Canada. So I'm not quite sure what was going on there, but there's quite a few that were happening. So it shows here the number of mortgages that were in arrears. Apparently this is around 5,000 is my understanding in all of Alberta at this particular point in time. At this particular point, again, we're not seeing a huge amount of foreclosures on MLS based on some information I was able to find. I'm not a realtor. I don't have access to that. Bankruptcies at the end of the second quarter are actually down over what they were last year at this time. But I anticipate that we're going to see that go up, because as foreclosures go up, bankruptcies go up as well going forward. So what can we do here? Well, we can help people stop foreclosures, and there are options. It's all about getting, those deals into our pipe and figuring out what's the best way to deal with it. And foreclosures are just one of the ways that we get deals into our pipe. Now, Ivan, if there's some questions that people are bringing up, I can't see them with sharing my screen. So can you please let me know?
There's no questions at this time, but maybe I'll direct them to maybe put some questions into the chat. Or feel free to unmute for a moment and ask a question. That might be quicker and easier.
Please do. That'd be great. So as we get the foreclosures coming into our pipe, we need to figure out what are we going to do with it. Wholesale, fix and flip, lease option, rent and hold, etc. as we're going forward. Thanks, Ivan. So why do I like foreclosures? Well, I do a lot of marketing around foreclosures, and I'm about to start ramping up my marketing here in this last quarter. I did keep things kind of at a low key earlier this year. As I said, I was busy with some other things. I have a couple of projects that I was working on that were not local projects, so I hadn't really focused on that. But I do want to get kind of my team, working towards that now, you know, for the rest of the year. I like foreclosures because they tend to be less competition. There's not as many people who understand the foreclosures. There's not as many people that necessarily go out looking for them. It's not easy to always find them. There's ways to do it, strategic ways to get it. And you just have to kind of build your systems to go that way. It's a chance for me to negotiate directly with the seller in most cases regarding the foreclosure. I want them to call me, hopefully. But I can also be dealing with the bank and sometimes with the court when I'm dealing with this. The earlier I can get the people in the foreclosure, the less money I have to put out of my pocket as well. And there's ways that I can do it with really a minimal amount of money out of my pocket and control the deal. And so lots of opportunity for creative options. I want to get them before the bank steps in. And thankfully in Alberta, we have a process where there's a little bit of time there for us with the foreclosure. So the foreclosure is a court action where the lender asks the court to cancel the mortgager's equity of redemption or right of redemption, or sorry, equity of redemption. Usually they're behind on payments, but not always. There's other circumstances that could put them into foreclosure. If they do have a second or third mortgage, then the first mortgage usually has a clause in there that says if any of the other ones are in default, that can put the first mortgage into foreclosure. And so what I have found over the last 10 years or so doing this business is that probably 50% of the people that I deal with in foreclosure have a second mortgage. More and more people have 3 mortgages, and I've had people with more than 3 mortgages. It's because they just keep, yeah, I know Dan's like covering his face. They just keep going out there. And, you know, it's really, sometimes you have to be very direct with the people because they don't understand kind of where they're at. And they got themselves into this problem, not you. And it's very easy to get caught up in their stuff, because you're going to run into some amazing, wonderful people who have a great heart, but they just don't know how to manage money, and they do a terrible job of it, and they keep getting themselves in trouble over and over again. And you want to do everything you can to help them, but you can't take on their problem. So remember that as you go along. You can only do so much as you go forward. You have to help them to some extent, but you can't get yourself in trouble as well. So the redemption is the mortgagor's right to have clear title to the property once the debt is repaid. Usually there's a redemption period that allows them, the homeowner, to go in and make payment, pay up any back payments, any interest, any fees, or sell the property. They need to make a decision. And a lot of people get stuck. They don't know how to make decisions and where to go. So this little cartoon kind of says it all. So the guy says you have to spend money to make money. So I bought myself a cabin cruiser, luxury sports car, and a giant screen plasma TV. So when we used to go to the foreclosure houses, Carol and I together, we always had a side bet. Do you know what the side bet was? Who had how big was the TV in the house? And was it on rent to own? Or was it something they actually paid cash for? 9 times out of 10, there would be this big honking TV, you know, 60, 70, oh my God, they would take up the whole wall. And they were usually on rent to own. They were on a payment plan. They didn't actually own it outright. Very little of it did they. And so I just found what Robert Kiyosaki says is rich people buy luxuries last, while the poor and middle class people tend to buy those luxuries first, and they buy them on credit. And that's where they get themselves into trouble going forward. So the reasons people go into foreclosures is, first of all, failure to make payments. And when we sign our mortgage in Canada, we sign a personal covenant that says we are the ones that are going to pay that mortgage back. And so they sign a contract with the bank. Now, if you're going to do business in the United States, and I don't know how many people are, the covenants in the United States tend to be different than the ones that are here in Canada. And that's why they can do a lot of things like short sales and a whole bunch of other different stuff. We can do short sales here too, but they're handled a little bit differently. And so we agreed to make the payment. There could be loss of income, which of course we're going to see with COVID, but that could be due to illness, maybe a death in the family, loss of job, people gone through divorce. I tend to see people that have been in the house for less than 7 years that get into foreclosure problems. They probably shouldn't have bought the house to begin with, but they were able to scrape money together from family and friends and got it. If they don't pay their property taxes, they can go into foreclosure. I can have my mortgage paid up and I don't pay my property taxes. So I had one client actually in Manitoba. It was a commercial property. The guy had decided he didn't like the way that the city had poured the new sidewalks. And he had this extra bill that was added to the mortgage or to his taxes to cover this. So he refused to pay the property taxes because he didn't like the way they poured his driveway or whatever it was. So this went on for several years and he ended up losing the entire commercial property in foreclosure at the end because he just refused to it. And as it turned out, he was an elderly gentleman, and I think dementia possibly set in or something at that particular point in time. So family had to step in, but he ended up losing this property. If you don't have enough insurance, one of the things that's in your mortgage, as you all know as real estate investors, you have insurance. But if for some reason you cancel your insurance because you can't make payment, and sometimes people will stop making their insurance payment to keep their mortgage paid. Or they'll stop making the first mortgage and make the second mortgage payment because the second mortgage payment is much cheaper. And they think that'll help them if they pay some of it, but it's two totally different groups. Sometimes interest rates go up during that time. Maybe they have, don't have a fixed mortgage, and all of a sudden interest rates go up and they try to lock in and now they can't afford it at the fixed mortgage. For some reason, sometimes I have people that have lost houses. They've made all of their mortgage payments, but their lender has decided not to renew their mortgage and has called their mortgage. And this happened with Wells Fargo and Exceed Mortgage, for example, back a few years ago. And this happened a lot back in the 80s with real estate investors. So one of my things to you as real estate investors, we always talk about getting joint venture partners and helping with the down payment, etc. If you don't have that registered on the property, it's probably a good thing. But you need to be having a discussion with your investors because you don't know where this is all going to shake out here at the end. And you may not be able to pay those payments to them. Are they going to be willing to ride it out with you? If their second mortgage is registered with, if you can, pay them off and get rid of them because the banks don't like risk. And we were already talking earlier about, investors are having a hard time getting financing. There's extra fees, et cetera, to us, and it's harder to get qualified. If this thing really goes south, they're going to be taking a look at people who have multiple mortgages. So you need to be prudent and make sure that you're setting yourself up and your investors. You've got to have those conversations with your JV partners. Just a side note for you as well. If for some reason you fail to obey the provincial and federal laws pertains to mortgage property, you could also, your mortgage could be called. So let's say you've all of a sudden got a meth lab in one of your houses and they find out about it. Away you go. You damage the property. For example, I had somebody who had come in, got a mortgage in Calgary for a little house in a redevelopment area with the intent he was going to rip down the house and of course develop it with two, you know, either two skinnies like you guys do in Edmonton or at the side-by-side duplex, which we tend to do a little more here. And he didn't tell the bank that's what he was doing. As it just happened to be that his loans manager lived around the corner, and he happened to go by one day and realized the house wasn't there anymore. So he got a phone call from the loans manager saying, you know, you tore down the house. The house was a security on the part of the security on the property. So needless to say, he had to go back in and rewrite that mortgage into some, you know, into a development construction loan because they were ready to call the mortgage on him. So I get this frantic phone call. You know, just happened to be somebody I knew personally. If they leave the property vacant for a long period of time and the bank finds out about it, you know, the bank could step in and do something. So if you miss a loan payment, the bank is gonna try to get a hold of you and find out what's going on. If you miss two, now it depends on the bank, and I would say right now, based on what we've just been talking about, the banks are going to be much more attentive and they're going to be much more concerned. If you miss a mortgage payment, then you're going to see these organizations that have specialize in being property managers for the banks for the foreclosures. And what happens is the bank then sends them a list every week of what properties they want them to monitor. So I miss a mortgage payment, somebody's going to be driving past my house without me knowing about it and checking to see, am I still there? Are the lights on? Are the curtains still there? What's going on? And if they think that I'm still there, they're going to let the bank know. So then the bank will set up a regular monitoring schedule, probably every 2 weeks or so. They're going to go by and take a look to make sure that I'm still there. If I'm not, they're going to report back to the bank. The bank's going to go to the court and they're going to get a right to seize that property and secure it so that it's their asset is protected, because the bank has the security, of course, of the house for their mortgage. So there's a lot of companies in Alberta that do that. There's some that do them nationally. Those particular people I've tried to work with, they're under very strict law contracts with the banks that they can't sell those properties or those lists to investors. You really would have to get in with someone who's a friend or something to do that, but most of them will not give you that information. In Canada, there are two different ways that you can get foreclosures, and this is the same in the United States. If you're interested in the United States, we have a non-judicial process, which we call the power of sale, which basically has the foreclosure process put into the mortgage documents. And the mortgagee has the right to sell the property. Now, in the primary province that that happens in is Ontario. And in Western Canada, we use the judicial system, which everything goes to the Court of Queen's Bench. All of the information is public knowledge. In the power of sale, we don't know when the bank has gotten a hold of anybody regarding their foreclosure unless the homeowner goes to the Court of Queen's Bench to try to stand up for themselves and file to protect themselves. Then it becomes public knowledge. But up until that point in time, the only way to get those listings for people that are in power of sale is to advertise through Kijiji, Craigslist, Facebook, whatever that you're using. And there's only a 35 to 45 day window, usually. If it's actually in the document, it's 35 days. If it's not in the mortgage document, their Mortgage Act in Ontario then extends it to 45 days, and then the bank can act. So the bank just, their lawyer sends out all the documents, they start the foreclosure process, and a lot of people just pack up and move because they don't know they have options they can protect themselves. In all of the Western provinces, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta, and British Columbia, as well as the province of Quebec, we use judicial process. So everything's at the court and you can get access to the information. So Alberta, We have New Brunswick, Newfoundland, Ontario, and PEI are power of sale. Nova Scotia does both. Not quite sure why, and they've decided that, but that's their Land Title Act has decided upon that. I'm going to talk a little bit further about that. So the power of sale starts with a notification to the owner. The judicial starts with a lawsuit against the homeowners. And the property, if the property does not generate enough money in the actual sale of the property in the judicial system or in the power of sale, the homeowner can still be taken to court and further action by the bank to cover the deficiency with something that they call a deficiency judgment. So let's say my mortgage is $260,000 and my property is only worth $200,000 and they sell it for $200,000. Now there's a $60,000 deficit. The bank can still go after the homeowner for that $60,000. So this happened a lot in the United States. I don't know if you followed during that time, but at that particular point in time, the property values went down over 50%. So for example, I was doing a lot of business in Phoenix, the city of Surprise, for example, which is part of the Metro Phoenix area. The properties were selling between $260,000, maybe $240,000. They were brand new houses, less than 5 years old. They were, 2,000, 2,200 square feet, box on box house, 4-bedroom, 2-car attached garage. Those houses we could get for $70,000 to $90,000 right afterwards. And it was just crazy. And the federal government in the United States, there's a law that if you sell your house because of the covenant that they sign, they have a taxable benefit of being able to write off their mortgage. But when they sell their house, they have to pay capital gains on it. Well, they've sold the house and they didn't have enough money on the mortgage. So let's say I sold my house for $90,000. I originally paid $180,000. Well, now I got a $90,000 deficiency. That actually was a taxable income to those people. So then right away, the government had to step in and defer those particular short sales like that because people couldn't afford it. They were all out of work. And so we need to see kind of where this is all going to shake out here and how we're going to handle it. We get to write off those capital gains, or we don't have to pay those capital gains at this particular point in time. But we still have a judgment, or a covenant that says we are responsible for that mortgage. So I don't know how they're going to handle these deficiency judgments. If you all of a sudden have tens of thousands of mortgages going up in foreclosure, what do you think that's going to do to the price of houses? It's going to bring it down. If the house prices start to go down, and now we're trying to sell those houses and the mortgages people got in with 5% down, now we're going to have huge deficiencies, and all of these people are going to now be going after, the bank is going to be coming after them to try to get them to pay it up. The government's going to have to step in and give some kind of an overview that says the banks cannot go charge deficiencies. Because if we have tens of thousands of people, how are they going to handle it? So that is something to keep in mind when you're dealing with people and you're going in to make an offer. You do need to be cognizant of what are they currently owing on that mortgage. Because now what you're doing, if you're going in and making an offer on the property for less than what the mortgage is, you're now creating a short sale. And the banks have to agree to do that. Tough to do them in Canada with CMHC or insured mortgages, but I see that in the future we're going to have this could be a huge problem, and we may have an opportunity there to do a discount on that. And that's a whole nother story we can go into.
We have a couple questions, Shelley, if you want to address a couple questions.
Yes, sure.
One is a clarification is that a court-ordered judicial sale is past redemption stage. Is that correct?
Right. Okay, so can I park that question because I'm going to cover that in a future slide?
Okay.
And then I'll come back to that, okay?
And
So thank you for asking the question.
And the other one is the point of sale. In point of sale, the borrower was just going bankrupt, correct?
No, in the power of sale,
Power of sale. Yeah, sorry.
the homeowner is going into foreclosure. The power of sale doesn't mean that the bank is going under. It's just the process in Ontario doesn't require the bank to go to the courthouse and file at the courthouse. So here in Alberta, in Ontario with the power of sale, most of the power of sale foreclosures never show up at the courthouse. The court's never involved. The bank deals with the homeowner. The homeowner moves out. The bank lists it for sale, and away you go. Unless the homeowner goes to the court to fight for their rights, now it's public knowledge. Okay, so let me talk about the judicial system.
Sure.
Oops, just a minute. Where's my? So, okay, sorry, I must have took that slide out. So if the lender goes under, which has happened especially in the United States, 300 lenders went under, banks went out of business. And now the lender's book of business, all those mortgages now are sitting there, right? The bank has gone under. Who is going to take over all of those contracts? And so what happens is behind the scenes, banks will come in and start bidding on that book of business. So let's say Scotiabank goes out of business here in Canada. TD Bank, RBC, CIBC will likely come in and make a bid on that book of business, and they will try to buy that book of business. Then they will take over all those contracts, and it'll be really oblivious to the homeowner what's happening, except for when they go to make their payment or they're behind on foreclosures. With foreclosures, then all of a sudden they might have Scotiabank, or instead of Scotiabank dealing with them, they might have CIBC. So the homeowners don't know a whole lot here in Canada. A lot of that happens behind the scenes. I used to be on the board of a credit union, and banks sell their mortgages all the time here in Canada, and nobody ever knows about it because everything just continues on. You continue making your payments and they just transfer the money to whoever bought the thing. If it goes under, then they follow the same process, and the homeowner doesn't even know that someone else has bought it. They may have sent a letter saying, Scotiabank's out of business. Here's what's going to happen, and you're fine. Just continue going ahead. In most cases, those mortgages will not be impacted, right? Okay, so let's talk about the foreclosure cycle. There's many different ways that you can get access to foreclosures. It starts here. If I miss my payment, and I'm going to talk predominantly about the judicial system because we're here in Alberta. If I miss my payment within 5 to 30 days, depending if I'm on weekly or monthly payments, the bank is going to either phone me, send me a letter, or I may phone them to find out what's going on. Typically here, the judicial process takes somewhere in around anywhere up to about 3 months. Now, there's actually someone that wrote a book called How to Stay in a House for 2 years and Not Pay for It. And basically it's how do you manipulate the judicial system. So if in that first period, if I phone the bank, as Dan was talking about, and I make arrangements with them to change my payments or whatever, or make partial payments, the bank will not go and start the foreclosure. They will usually try to work with me. And I think the banks are going to be incented even more now because of the COVID fallout to work with the homeowners. But there's going to be a certain point where they're going to, say enough is enough. So back in 2007, when we went into recession here in Alberta, I had some friends here in Calgary that had 3 mortgages on their property. And the first mortgage, they would default on all of them because he had lost his job. She was working part-time. They were in a tough financial situation. They phoned the bank, they got a deferral program. They actually went for two years, I think it was, no, 1 year. They went for a whole year of making little payments here and there and, you know, trying to tell them that they were going to do stuff before the bank actually stopped it. But on average, this is 3 months, usually here in Alberta. At the end of that time, they can go in and they can try to do some things. And this is where I can, as a real estate investor, I sometimes help people stop their foreclosure here. If I work with someone like, you know, Dan, who's the mortgage broker, and I get working with him, maybe I can refinance them, because during this time, their credit usually hasn't been hit too hard. You know, the COVID's going to be an exception, but usually if they're, you know, 1 or 2 months behind, they're probably still keeping up with credit cards, car payments, all that kind of stuff. It might not be too bad. Their credit might be okay. Once we get past the 3 months, then that's when things really start to, you know, go downhill usually. So quite often I can do things in here. Sometimes I can go in and renegotiate their mortgage on their behalf, because the personal covenant that I talked about doesn't always allow them to go in and renegotiate with them. But you and I, as real estate investors, as a third party, can come in and negotiate on their behalf. So let's say, for example, they were down to like a 15-year amortization on their mortgage, and one of the partners was out of work, but the other one had decent income. They just couldn't afford the payments. Maybe the 4 payments are like $1,900. So I'll go in and I'll get their term charge changed from 15 on the amortization out to 25. And now their payments are down to like $1,000 and they can cover it. They're fine. They can't always negotiate that themselves. They need a third party to come in and do that, for example. So during this time, this is what we call the pre-foreclosure. And this is where I like to work, because this is before anybody else knows. It's not at the courthouse yet. Only the bank and the homeowner knows they're in trouble. So I like to talk to people in this section. It's going to cost me less money. I have more options. And if I can get it extended with the bank a little longer, hopefully I have enough time to do something to help them out. If they don't do something in here, and most people don't know what to do, they don't know to phone the bank, they just ignore it, get themselves in more and more trouble, then the bank goes, okay, that's enough is enough. I'm going to now start the foreclosure process. They will send their attorney to the courthouse and file a statement of claim. Now the homeowner is in foreclosure. They're not foreclosed on yet, they're in foreclosure. And this time between the blue line and the red line, that is their redemption period. They have the right to redeem, refinance, sell the property, you know, do a few different things in that time frame to hopefully, you know, save themselves from losing the house. Everybody that has a lien on the property will be notified at that time that they're in foreclosure. So if they have a second mortgage or first mortgage or whatever, if they have a second mortgage that they're in foreclosure on and they're not in foreclosure on the first mortgage, the first mortgage holder is going to monitor the situation to see what's going on, because that second mortgage, they don't want them to go to list the property for sale for only the amount of the second mortgage. It has to be listed for the amount of the first and the second. So the first and second mortgage have got to talk to each other if they're private lenders or whatever. On average here in Alberta, this is 6 months. You have the right, though, to go to the court and ask for a one-day redemption. And then sometimes you're going to get it. And usually the lenders will go in and ask for like a 1 day. And the court will come back. And if the homeowner is still living in the house, if there's equity in the home, they're going to try to protect the homeowner. And they're going to usually give them 6 months. The exception that I've seen there is somebody who had a multi-million-dollar property. They'd been trying to sell it for 6 months to a year, were not able to sell it. By the time it finally went to foreclosure, the lender went in and asked for a 1 day redemption, and the bank came back and said, no, they gave them a 2 month. So it gave the homeowner time to still try to sell it and to pack up and move out of this, huge house. And so usually plan for 6 months in here. So this is why I'm saying you're not going to see the full impact of COVID yet till sometime next year, because these people are going to default on payments if we don't get an extension starting in October if they're out of work. They can probably talk to the bank for maybe 3 months or 4 months, maybe a little longer, and try to do something to work with them. But then at some point the bank's going to go and start the foreclosure process and file that statement of claim. That's going to take us into next year, 6 months down the road. So we probably got 6 to 9 months at least before we're really going to start to see what exactly is going to happen. Because right now there's too many variables that's gonna go. Does anyone have any questions? So far, so good. Okay.
I'm just curious, Shelley, how many may already be in this situation of pre-foreclosure? Do you have any idea on that?
I would say that at least in Alberta, there's probably 5,000 people that are in that, maybe, and then that isn't even the people that are on deferrals yet. Because usually when you see in foreclosures, the numbers of foreclosures is about 40% more or 50% more of those would be foreclosures. So right now there's not a whole lot that are in foreclosure, but we have a lot of people we know that are in deferrals. So there's a lot that are sitting there pending. I'd say minimum 5,000 plus. So we need to see how that's all going to shake out. So during this time, when they're in pre-foreclosure, I mentioned that we're going to talk to the homeowner. When they're in foreclosure, I'm going to be talking to the homeowner in some cases. In other cases, I'm going to possibly be dealing with the realtor, because the homeowner may put it up for sale and I might find it on MLS, or the bank may put it up for sale, or the court may put it up for sale. I could be dealing with the court, I can be dealing with the bank, or I can be dealing with the homeowner and the realtor at, during that time. It depends on how it comes into me through my marketing and how I'm going to get that. So the court will try to protect the homeowner. If the homeowner is doing nothing and there's lots of equity in that house, the court will step in and get a realtor involved and get it listed. And you'll see it for sale then as Court of Queen's Bench for sale, or you're going to see it as a bank for sale. It's difficult in MLS systems to find foreclosures because we don't have a box that says foreclosure. You have to look into the remarks and who the seller is with your realtor to do some specialty searches to find these things as you're going along. I prefer to deal with the homeowner. And even if it's getting down to the wire, the 6 months is just about out and they're ready to, go to the foreclosure, I have been able to deal with the homeowner right up until the day before the whole thing is done. As long as I can come in and prove that I have an accepted offer and I have the ability to buy the property through and make up the arrearage payments or pay off their mortgage or whatever through that process. So, and there's many, many different ways that you can handle those during that time. But this is typically what goes on here. Again, some homeowners don't take any time to list the property. They don't do their due diligence. They get frozen. They don't know what to do from there. All right. And now it will go to foreclosure if they haven't done anything. This is where the bank goes and actually petitions the court to buy the property. So it all starts with a statement of claim. If it's a rental property, the assignment of rents will kick in as well, and the bank will and the court will appoint a property manager to come in and collect the rents. and they will make sure the payments are made. And if there's anything left over, it'll go back to the investor. But usually, you know, if you're behind, there's probably too many arrearages, probably not going to be an opportunity there. Sometimes you can use a quit claim in this situation. And this happened a lot back in the 80s with the dollar down deals. I don't know if everyone's familiar with the dollar down deals, but very similar thing happened back then. The houses were, the mortgages were worth more than the house was worth, and people just started walking away from their properties, and they would sign them over to an investor for $1, and then you took on their problem, and they would quit claim their claim on the title, and off you go. It's used quite often with, you know, divorce, for example. If it's a commercial property going into receivership, into foreclosure, then a receiver is usually appointed, and they will then handle the sale of the property, usually for the bank as you're going forward.
Shelley,
Yes.
it's Gert. Back in those days here, I mean, with the dollar dealers, I mean, you walk in there and basically assume the mortgage is for $1 down, right? Which is nowadays, well, you can assume, but you have to qualify, right?
So very good question. Legally, according to my lawyer in Alberta, we can still assume the mortgages without qualifying. It's the bank that put the qualification process into the mortgages now that have made it difficult for us to do that. If we got into a situation like that, again, here in Alberta, I think the banks are going to be a lot more lenient on that. If you come in and say, listen, I'll take over the problem, you let me transfer this over. Now, the homeowner's name may be required to stay on the mortgage and the title for a year, and you co-title it with them. And then at the end of that time, then they may write you off of the mortgage. But what happened with investors, and I know that came in during that time, is they brought in investors with them because the interest rates were 18% and 14%. And the average interest rate was around 8 at that point because everything had gone down. So they came in and paid down the interest rates on those mortgages in order to take them over. And that's why the bank allowed them to do that.
But they were also they were also getting kickback from the government at that time with the high interest rates.
Yes, there was other programs that were in place to try to protect because the economy and the market had just, you know, been impacted so dramatically. So, you know, that could be a potential program that we may see in the future as well. So again, we'll see what 2021 is going to shake out to be going forward. If did that answer your question?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, so you're also going to have CMHC insured mortgages versus non-insured. And at this particular point in time, CMHC can be quite, you know, stringent, and all of them, Genworth, you know, Canada Guarantee, are stringent on their procedure, right? They don't like to take a discount on the mortgage if there's insurance on it because they have the insurance. However, if the mortgages go down substantially, they may have to do something to change their policy and see where that'll end up. So we need to also know who exactly is named as the defendants on this particular case. So I had a situation with a husband and wife that went through a divorce. When I got the paperwork from the husband, the mortgage was in the husband's name, but they went through the divorce and he had transferred the property into her name, but she was not on the mortgage. They ended up going into foreclosure and both of them were now named as defendants. Well, she was not very happy that she was named as a defendant, but she was the owner of the property and the mortgage was secured against the property. So you really need to understand who are all the people you're dealing with, you know, who's on first and what's on second, so you can work through that as well. Usually the bank is going to want vacant policy or possession at some point in time when they're getting into foreclosure. If they're going through bankruptcy, most of the people, if they come to me and they're going to a bankruptcy trustee because of, you know, just they're so far behind, I recommend that they put the mortgage into their bankruptcy because they will get some other concessions from the government to do that. If it's in probate, then the executors may have to be involved. You know, I've had a situation where people have passed away and their spouse can't afford the property and the house was still part of the probate because the children were underage. And so there's just, you know, different things. So make sure you get some good legal advice to help you with it. As I mentioned, the homeowner can stand up for themselves. So the homeowner can go, they have 16 to 20 days to make a filing once they get served, to lodge a statement of defense and say, I don't owe this money, or I do owe it, but I want the opportunity to be notified of all of the things that the bank is doing, and I have the opportunity to sell the house myself and control that process. If they don't do that, and they just kind of bury their head in the sand, there's about 40 to 50 different types of documents that can be filed in a judicial foreclosure process in every province. And if they don't go and ask for a demand of notice, they won't be notified of all of those things. There's key things that they're going to be told about, but not everything is going to be done. So they should go to court. A lot of people ask me to go to court with them, and I refuse to do that because I may end up buying the house and I feel then that there is a conflict of interest in that particular case. So once it's first started, they do the statement of claim. They will also file that they're starting a litigation, and they will also file the deficiency judgment, usually at the very first. Usually a week or 2 weeks later, they come back and file something called the order nisi here in Alberta, and it actually sets the redemption period. And that's when the court will determine if it's going to be that 6 months. So you also need to kind of have an understanding of where they're at. When anyone phones me and they tell me they're behind in payments, I want to know, you know, has it gone to court? Do you have papers that have been sent to you by the court? Can you send those to me? Get them to take pictures with their phone if they don't have a scanner or whatever, text it to me. Or if I'm at their home, I'm going to get them to, you know, with the right to give me a copy of it, or I'll take a, you know, picture with my phone. I want to be able to go through those documents and kind of get an idea of when their redemption period is and what's all going on. And it will tell you, the statement of claim will tell you all the money that is owing and a little bit about the story, depending how far they're in. You can go down to the courthouse. So let's say I'm in foreclosure, you come to me. You can go down to the courthouse to the registrar's office and you can pull my file. The homeowner can go pull it for free, but you and I would have to pay $10 here in Calgary and Edmonton, and I can pull the file. And I can see the entire court proceedings. So if it's just new and they just filed the statement of claim, there's not going to be very much in there, but it'll be valuable information. They're going to have a statement of claim. They're probably going to have a drive-by appraisal, and they'll probably have the title pulled. Well, bonus, that's great information. It saves me going and pulling a title. And, you know, now I've got this drive-by appraisal, and the drive-by appraisal will have like a fire sale price, et cetera, in it. So I can take copies of all that information. There used to be a list service here in Alberta, but it's not available anymore unless someone else has started it that I'm not aware of, where they actually went to the court every week and created an Excel spreadsheet and sent that to us. And it was great. So that's how I did my foreclosures on a lot of cases. If I do nothing, and I haven't listed for sale, the bank's not heard from me, the bank will go to court and ask for the right to sell the property. So they'll get an order for sale, judgment from the court. And then if they do actually get it sold, then a document will be filed to say that there's an order confirming the sale. These are just some of the types of documents that can be filed at the courthouse. The one at the very end that is the most important is if I've done nothing to pay up the arrearages and get it back in good standing, and I've done nothing to sell the property, and the court then has to step in, and the bank, and they sell it, the bank will come to the court to say, I want the right to get a rights order, which allows me to foreclose on the property. And this is the order that actually ends the redemption period and sends that property now to the bank. The homeowner now has no rights to that property. They will have to make arrangements with the bank to move out of the property. And now the bank will list it for sale. And so that's where you're in that last section of the cycle. At that particular point in time, now there will be a final order of foreclosure that will be sent through the court. And now the homeowner will have the foreclosure on their credit bureau, and it will stay on there for 7 years. And so in a lot of ways, the foreclosure looks worse than a bankruptcy, because the foreclosure says that you had the ability and willingness to make the payments and you didn't. And so lenders now are going to, you know, the mortgage brokers who are listening all know, the lenders then want to know kind of where you're at with that status, with that process, and it could take you a while before you're going to get financing again from a traditional lender. And if you went into foreclosure with someone like TD Bank, you may never get another mortgage with TD Bank. They'll just find some way to, you know, not approve you at some point. This is when the deficiency judgment kicks in as well, if they're going to go after them. So who are you going to deal with? You can deal with the homeowner up until it goes to judicial sale or to final foreclosure. Might be dealing with the Court of Queen's Bench for judicial sales, and I could be dealing with the bank. Usually once the statement of claim is filed, I'm actually dealing with the bank's lawyer. The bank hands over the entire file to the lawyer and gets the lawyer to deal with it. Their collections department in most cases doesn't want to deal with that any longer. They'll direct you to the lawyer. So again, this is the 3 sections, whoops, that we have. Now, can I go back to the question, Ivan? I just want to make sure I covered it.
Yeah. So the question says a court-ordered judicial sale is past redemption stage, correct?
So the court-ordered usually is right at the end of the redemption period or during that period. If the court steps in, it's usually in that section when they're in foreclosure. Once they've been foreclosed on, then most of the time it's the bank that puts it up for sale.
Okay, hope that, yeah.
Did that answer the question?
That makes sense, Leah? I don't know if you have a follow-up question. That makes sense. I think it makes sense.
Okay. All right. Is there any other questions about the cycle or the high-level stuff that I went through?
On my phone.
Go ahead, Greg.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was talking. My mic was on. I apologize.
Okay.
Oh, no problem. No problem. Okay. So it's all clear as mud, or everybody's off checking out something on TV. So we're going along.
I had a question.
Yes.
Just wondering what, or I guess where or how you feel is the best way to reach these people, and actually how receptive are they? Like how many of them are in denial that, oh no, I'm 2 months into this or 3 months, but I'm going to keep my house, you know, whereas people are just like, okay, save me, get me out of this, let me move on with my life and maybe maintain my credit.
Well,
so kind of a 2-part question.
As it happens, the next slide is about how to find the people, but I'm going to address the denial question. So I used to get a list service, and I actually went door knocking. And I've done that in the United States and in Canada. And it's a lot less risky in Canada than the United States, because you never know when you're in Texas, you know, who's got a gun behind the door. So you really have to be careful, and you don't want to go, you know, too late in the day or too early in the day either, because they're still sleeping. But so a lot of people are in denial. When I get the list, I get it early on in the process. A lot of people don't even know that it's been started, that they haven't, opened their mail. They haven't, seen or read the information, or frequently one of the partners, husband and wife, partner, whatever happens to be, hasn't told the other party in their relationship that they're in this situation. So you deal with all kinds of things. So they all come there, knock on the door, and they'll go, "Oh, no, I'm not behind on my mortgage. I'm good." And I go, "Well, I just want to let you know, are you?" And you always verify, of course, that you're talking to the right person before you launch into this, because this is very private information. And people don't want their neighbors to know that they're in financial trouble. And so I'd say to them, well, perhaps you might want to follow up with this, and you can go down to the courthouse and actually pull the file. And I give them the file number so that they can actually go down to the courthouse and pull it. Other people are saying, "Oh, I'm behind, but I'll get it caught up, not a problem." And I just say, well, here's my information. There's a lot of options that are available, and you may not be aware of all of them. And perhaps, I might be able to help you with that. That's the service I provide. I can help you possibly, refinance or save your house. Or if you're, at some point you may want to sell it, I might be able to help you find someone to buy it. And so I always try to leave that door open because what'll happen is I contact them usually within the first month of them being filed, and they deny it. And then I get a phone call from them, 2 weeks before they're ready to go into the final foreclosure, and they're panicked. Well, they had 5 months to deal with it, but they thought they could take care of it themselves, and they couldn't. So a lot of people are in denial, a lot of them. And people ignore the information. They just don't pay attention to it and hope that, I guess, it's just going to go away. I don't know. But so to get these people, some of the best ways to find them is marketing yourself. Constantly I'm running ads all the time. I run 2 or 3 different kinds of ads on foreclosure, different verbiage, because, I might say stop your foreclosure, or I'll say behind on payments. So they just draw upon different people's, people will click into something that different verbiage depending on who they are. So I market as many different places that I can. For those of you that do online, marketing campaigns, might want to set up just a special campaign just for foreclosures, but I just try to drive them in any possible way. Also, at the meetings like this, you want to let everyone know that you specialize in foreclosures, because somebody else might get one and they note they don't know how to handle it, and away you go. I work with a realtor, so it's kind of like a team of us here, that he specializes in foreclosures as well. And he has a legal team that's very good. They will take those banks to the task, and because sometimes the banks are the ones that cause the problem, depending on what happened and how it went. So, as soon as I get one, I let him know. He calls me up. We work, closely together on those type of things. So you just need to let everybody know what it is that you're doing. Certainly, I work with multiple realtors from different houses that tell me, when they're getting a foreclosure. Some of them specialize in dealing foreclosures with the banks. I try to get in and, catch them as early as I possibly can. Sometimes I can get them before they hit MLS, whatever happens to be. I do find it varies on MLS as to different time frames as to when it's more profitable to do an MLS deal than others. Sometimes the banks are really open to dealing with you, and they list the properties at reasonable prices. The next time, all of a sudden the cycle will change, and it's a seller's market, and the banks rack their prices up, and they're really strict, and they won't move on their prices. So you just need to try it out. And I do put in lowball offers, and I will go in for short sales. And, if the property, I had not that long ago, cat lady hoarder house. She was in foreclosure. She had 5 cats, never cleaned the litter box. So the whole house was a litter box. and it needed a lot of work. I was able to justify with the bank on a first mortgage insured to get it down enough that I could come in and make money on the deal. So you never know unless you ask. Don't be afraid. Just try it, see what happens.
You are
yeah.
you are right, Shelley. Though I mean, it's a lot safer here foreclosure than it is in the States. I can vouch for that. Was down in Tulsa, Oklahoma once here looking at a property, and the guy actually went back into his house to go get his gun here. That's when I started running.
Yeah.
So it happens.
Yes. Well, in Regina, when I started this business, I'd have to worry about the baseball bats because, you know, most of the people have a baseball bat behind the door. Not as many guns then, a few more now, right? At this point, but
Yeah.
yes, you got to be cautious. Take someone with you, have a backup plan, just in case.
Unless he's driving the car and then he drives away from you while you're running behind here trying to catch up in the car while the guy's going in for his gun.
No, that's a good partner. You might want to reconsider that.
I did.
If you had Keyman Insurance and he had insured you higher, that's probably why. He's right away.
Shelley, do you see a lag maybe in some of these hearings due to COVID and
yes,
lack of court ability at this point?
I do. I think that you're going to see the banks are going to go more than 3 months. They're going to try to work with people because they're going to be mandated by the government. The government's probably going to step in and give them a little bit of a boost to give them some money to kind of help them ride out some of those because they're going to be in financial trouble, right? They're going to have lost a lot of money. Not that they don't make a lot of money in Canada, but still. And I do think the court system is going to be backed up, right? COVID has already got them backed up because they were shut down in most cases, probably for 3 months or more. And so, you know, we're going to have an opportunity to extend that out a little bit. Hopefully the economy starts to turn around, people get back to work and, you know, they're able to get back on track. And if that happens, you know, even if it's 6 months or whatever down the road, and all of a sudden the homeowner has got a job again, they go back to the bank and say, listen, I'm back to work, I'm making good income. Well, the bank probably will do something to recast that mortgage or move those payments to the back of the mortgage and let them go, and they're going to pay more interest on it afterwards. It's going to be to the benefit of the bank. There's going to be all kinds of things that should happen probably at that time.
Does that help or hinder in the buying of foreclosures in that they have more time? Does that not take some of the urgency away for them to sell?
It does, but it's still hanging over their head all the time, and their stress level is going to be very high, and they're going to be behind on their car payments, and the car dealerships are not going to be able to afford to go probably as long. They're going to be behind their credit cards. Their credit's going to be trashed, you know, so it'll speed some people up and it'll drag some people up. So there should be opportunity to get in to help those people that need to be dealt with sooner. For those people that are familiar with the United States, auctions are really prevalent down there in most of the judicial states, which are a good percentage of them. Here in Canada, the only consistent auction that I know of is in Manitoba. And every Thursday, Kay's Auction Service has the foreclosures for the banks listed. And you can sometimes get some really good deals. I have mentor clients of mine that have probably bought 100 units at the auction over the last, say, 2 years. Joint venture partners came in and helped them buy a bunch of multi-units, anywhere from duplex up to, I think, 12-unit apartment buildings. So those depends. Sometimes nobody shows up at the auction, you don't know. In the United States, whenever you get a chance to travel, again, if you're going down on vacation, I would highly recommend you hit one of the auctions. Just go check it out. It's all online, public, as to where they're going to be. You can go check them out. Some of the auctions have gone online total, but in most cases, people still want to go there and, you know, deal with it in person. The list services were available. There's different ones that have been available at different times. Just need to search it out. And in the province of Quebec, there actually is a website that provides access to a lot of information, one of which is the foreclosures in Quebec. And Quebec is also a judicial system as well. Need to find some wholesalers that specialize in doing this and work with them. Again, network. Just tell as many people as possible what it is you're doing, and just get the word out. And hopefully, the phone will start ringing and you'll start to get some deals as you go forward. The other thing that I'm going to just mention to you is about the priority on the title. One of the due diligence items, one of the first things you need to do is pull the title and find out exactly what you're dealing with, because you could be dealing with someone that's in foreclosure on their first mortgage, but you don't know until you actually pull the title what else you're dealing with. They could have taxes. So as I mentioned before, they can go into foreclosure and back taxes. If they haven't paid their taxes, the bank will be notified. Everybody that has a lien on the property will be notified that they're going for tax auction, which is usually in Alberta about 2 to 3 years. When they go into tax auction, they're usually a couple of months down the road. The first mortgage holder will monitor the situation. If the payment is current on the first mortgage, then just before it goes into tax auction, they will step in, the first mortgage holder, pay the taxes, and they will add that to the first mortgage. If they don't make the payment, then they foreclose on them at that particular point in time. So you need to know, are the taxes paid? Because you could have a surprise otherwise. The homeowners association, condo fees, special assessments, all take precedence as well over top of the mortgage. So if you're not making your homeowners association fees, condo fees, they could step in and now have a lien against your property. And in the States, when we were going through the crash down there, a lot of homeowners association were foreclosing on some of the condos down there. Then Revenue Canada wades into the fray, and they look to be paid as well. So one of my friends calls me up one day and he was fit to be tied. He was about to close in a week on a deal, and at the last minute, Revenue Canada slapped a $20,000 lien on the property because they found out from the homeowner they were selling the property and they owed a whole bunch of taxes. So they slapped a big lien on him. I had another foreclosure. The gentleman was running an online business and had made a lot of money, like well over $1 million, and thought because it was online, he didn't have to pay Revenue Canada. Revenue Canada took issue with that and charged him $500,000, $600,000 in taxes, and they slapped it on the property. So you can negotiate with Revenue Canada, but you need to know about it. And if you don't pull the title, then if it's on the title, great. But just before you close, of course, your lawyer should be pulling the title again. Be prepared for unexpected things to show up. That is one of them that might happen. Certainly you're going to see the first mortgage, second mortgage, third mortgage, however many mortgages they have. I think the most I've seen is 6 on one property. And then of course other junior lien holders, utility company liens, judgments. You went and got a fence built with a contractor and they put a lien on your property with builder's liens. If you haven't paid your spousal or child support, there could be a lien on there as well. That is, provincially mandated now. So now you need to negotiate all those things. And there could be errors on the property. Somebody maybe passed away. I had a deal where the father had passed away and bequeathed the house to his son and his brother. And his son wanted to sell us the house. So I had a junior assistant working with me. He goes and gets this whole deal locked down. Everything's going good. We pull the title and there's another name on the title. And when we got to, got a hold of him, then the uncle was the one that put the kibosh on the whole thing and did not want to sell the property at that point. So we ended up losing the whole deal because we didn't do that due diligence right up front. So you never know. Pull the title, check it out. And not all of them are deals. I've had some of them that are so over encumbered that I couldn't negotiate with enough to get rid of them, like special assessments for $30,000, $40,000. You know, it was just, sometimes when I'm talking to people, I say, I'm going to take a look at it, work the numbers, see if this makes sense for me and my business. And I'll come back and say, you know, we've taken a good look at it. We don't think that it works for us. Here's, you know, if we can help them refinance or something to that effect, or I'll give them instructions of what to do to go back to the bank. Because sometimes there's things that they can do when they go back to the bank to maybe get out from underneath it as well. Do you do due diligence? You know, just like any other deal, right? Comparables, what's happening in the market, where are they at in this whole process? Pull the title. And shocking, but they don't always tell you everything. And all of a sudden you get all kinds of surprises as you go along. So you got to keep that in mind too, and check it out as you're going along. So when I get a foreclosure, now there's many different opportunities for me. So certainly I can get it under contract and I can flip it. So I do a lot of wholesaling of just about anything that comes in the door. Just because people know that I have this big network, they phone me up and, you know, if I can help them, I do, and I get a referral fee, great. I don't always spend a whole lot of time on it, but I wholesale more than just real estate. Sometimes I get a great buy, fix, and sell deal. Now, I'm assuming that most of you know about agreements for sale. Pretty prominent in Alberta right now. I will take the property down under agreement for sale or under a lease option, get it under contract, do a flip, fix and flip, and sell it. When I do that, I in essence basically take over the mortgage without assuming it. And then I have different strategies that I use in working with the bank as I go forward. Also, it could be a good rental property, you know, could be a BRRRR, buy it, reno it, refinance, rent it out, and then repeat, do it all over again. It could be a rent-owned property, you know, pretty much any one of those things. When I was a mortgage broker, sometimes I just helped them refinance and, you know, I got a mortgage out of the deal with them. But I'm not a mortgage broker anymore, so I work with all my friends that are mortgage brokers and they help me with my clients. So basically, just in summary, I don't know if I'm over my time, Ivan, or not. The first thing, three things that I always say the most important for real estate investors: have a marketing plan, marketing all the time, finding those deals, and certainly finding joint venture partners. Those are kind of my three priorities I'm always working on. Knowing how to do your due diligence, getting it in writing, and then call your mentor and coach and your lawyer. You know, if you've got a coach and mentor that's helping you with the process, run it past them. My mentor students call me all the time. I have people call me that, you know, I mentored 5 years ago and they still run deals past me because something new comes up, or there's always something new. You never know. There's always, you know, it's a little twist here and there and something. And you need to figure out what's your exit strategy. Is it going to be, you know, and do you have two? I always like to make sure that I have a backup plan to my plan. If I plan on doing a fix and flip and it market changes, then can I refinance it and hold it as a rental as my exit? And then certainly, you know, look for an opportunity to do it again and again. All right, does anyone have any questions?
Any questions out there?
Hi there, how are you? That was a really nice presentation, thank you.
All right, and Neil?
Hi, nice to meet you as well. I just wanted to ask, you know, you mentioned this agreement for sale. That was so interesting. I've actually never heard of it before. Could you explain that one more time? Could you run that by us one more time?
So an agreement for sale, are you familiar with rent to own?
Yes, somewhat.
So with rent to own, usually you buy the property and you rent it out to somebody, or you have a partner that helps you buy the property. You own it, control the property, and you rent it with the option for someone to buy it in the future. With the agreement for sale, the ownership stays with the owner. and I have the option to buy it at some point in the future. So I don't have to go out and get financing, take over the property. It's an owner-seller financing strategy. And I would imagine, Ivan, you probably have had people come and talk about agreement for sale in the past, have you?
Yeah.
Might be a topic that you might have in the future. You can probably, I could spend hours, kind of going over that. One of the lawyers that I've used in Edmonton, Barry McGuire, is extremely knowledgeable on rent-to-owns. Has he come out and talked to your group before, Ivan?
Yes, he has talked on that topic. Yeah.
Yes, he's very good. So,
I know we'll have to have another him back or somebody else to present on that. And,
Okay.
I'm sure you're not alone wondering, more on that. It's hard to keep up to date with all the different strategy.
Thank you.
yes, an agreement for sale and rent to own fit so nicely with foreclosures. And, we could definitely go on, a lot longer with it, but we do have, some time commitments here tonight. But that is when I'm working with my mentor clients, I work with them a lot on those strategies. How do you control that property without owning it? Because not everyone has the ability to come in with a lot of money or with the ability to get financing. And especially now with, COVID, maybe you've been out of work or you're only working part-time or something to that effect, or maybe, another member of your family is impacted the household income, could be another option. That definitely would help you out for sure.
Thank you.
So
Okay.
an agreement for sale, basically, could you just break it down as it's a buy with a long-term possession date?
Correct. Yep. But you got to figure out how you're going to handle the bank. So it depends on how far they're in debt and what your strategy is going to be and how you're going to pay up the arrearages, or if you need to pay up the arrearages, because there's ways to do without paying up the arrearages as well. All right.
Can you tell us what a mentor client is for you?
So I do two different programs. I have a mentorship program where I work with someone, and I usually have done it in the past face-to-face. So depending on the situation with COVID, the last couple that I've done, I've had to do part of it face-to-face, and the rest of it was over Skype and Zoom. But typically with the mentorship and the coaching, it's somebody that comes in that is looking to take their business, either get started, take it to the next level. It really is all about how do I help you develop your business? What is the strategy that you want to focus on to start with that might help you move forward based on your market, what's happening in the industry right now, and your own personal situation. It's really all about you. Where are you at? What are your goals and objectives for you and your family? Where do you want to take that? So the mentorship typically has been done face-to-face, and it's usually for 4 days in person with phone calls leading up to that, and for about a month or so afterwards, and then 1 year of deal support. And then my coaching program is an online coaching phone program through Skype, Zoom, whatever, WhatsApp, video. And that typically is a cheaper program, and it's for 6 months. So I do, I do a variety of different things. I've come in and done group courses. I've been doing this for a long time. So I'm pretty, depends on the needs of the group. Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
We'll probably have to move towards wrapping up. We're a little bit over time.
Yes. I just want to make sure that the membership felt that there was value in the information that was given this evening.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Okay. Well, I enjoyed it. Now I do much prefer to come and talk in person. I had the opportunity last October to come and talk to the group about wholesale, but Zoom is a great tool that we can use now, and And I thank you very much for the opportunity to come and talk to you. If anyone has any questions, you can get a hold of me as well. And certainly, you know, my whole intent, as well as I always focus on telling all of my clients and people that I'm talking to about, you know, reinforcing that we should all be looking for multiple streams of income. And this is just one of the way to help us build our real estate portfolio, but you never know what this could spin off into as well. So again, thank you very much for the invitation to speak today. If you want to get a hold of me, here's my contact information. And I can make the presentation available to everybody as well from here. I don't know, Ivan, do you have a website or you post on Facebook or?
Yeah, we can post it in a few different places, absolutely.
Okay, sounds great. Sounds great.
And
Thank you.
the chat is full of great presentations. Thank you. And so the crowd is very appreciative, and they took home a lot of information.
Okay, great. Well, it was always fun. I love doing it. I could talk real estate for days. I've been doing it for a long time, and I just still love doing it, really. And I really miss doing the personal presentations because of, you know, COVID and what's been going on. But, you know, things have changed.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I think we all miss. I miss being at the hotel and on the stage there, and being able to network and shake hands.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. The good old days.
The good old, yeah, that'll be like the good old days story, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, thank you very much. There's lots of information there, and that, you know, I'm glad that we invited you back, and we'll invite you back, and hopefully the next time it's in person.
Right.
And,
yes. Let's hope we're soon
yeah,
back to the
yeah, exactly.
Yes, for sure. All right. Well, I wish everyone the very best and happy investing.
Thank you so much. I'll get you to go on and pop me into the host spot again. And so the next thing we do typically, for those that don't know, is the deals and steals round. And so that gives us the opportunity to share any kind of deal that you may have. Maybe it's a deal that you have under contract, and there might be somebody that may want a joint venture with you, or just buy it off of you, a wholesale deal, or, you know, any sort of real estate related offer that you may have. So if you have such a item, unmute yourself and please share.
Yeah, I have something, Ivan.
Okay.
I was mentioning about those grants for websites, and my partner does create websites, and he can do them fairly affordable. So if anyone is looking for one to create, you can email me. And then one other quick thing I just wanted to mention is I've been buying a lot of furniture, and I'm using direct buy. And I just bought backsplash tile for a 10-foot bar for $30. So I'm not supposed to tell pricing, but it is extremely cheap on direct buy. So just wanted to recommend that to people too, if you're looking for really good deals on, especially cabinets or any kind of renovation stuff.
Oh, good. Thanks, Linda. Anybody else?
I'll take the opportunity. I did it a couple of months ago.
Sure.
I'm building in Eau Claire, www.altuscommunity.ca. I have 22 units under construction, really beautiful, gorgeous homes. If you have clients, if you're looking to invest, they're townhomes, 1765 square feet, 289.9, really, really, really wicked price actually. And I'll be opening the show homes in October 3rd, the weekend of October 3rd, but the week before I'm going to do a preview. And I'd like to invite all of you to give me a call and come for a preview. I'd really appreciate that. I'd like to meet you. I'd like to see you. I'll put my number down. I've just forwarded the website, and I'll put my number down as well. Thanks very much.
Anil, we might be able to make that an event for the group. So we should chat and make a. We've done that before. You know, I post an event and we steer the investors that way.
Oh, I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, there's 3,000, we're almost at the 3,000 mark of our group reach of different investors. You know, obviously some that are more involved than others, but yeah.
Well, I really appreciate that. It's actually a very large project. For me, it's 51 units in phase one and another 30 units in phase two. So I'd really love for that to happen. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Anybody
Well,
else?
I'm Jason. I'm new to the group, which is awesome. I'm glad to see this great presentation today. I'm someone new to investing. I have 9 right now doors, 1 commercial that I've bootstrapped myself. So right now I have some funding that I'm trying to look to see what's going on. I'm really glad to hear that, you know, some of the talk about foreclosures and things gave me some new ideas to look at. But if anyone wants to meet with me or chat, I'm young in the game and want to learn from as many people as possible, and calling bandit sign people, and they're always fun to chat with as well. So if anyone wholesales or wants to chat with me, I'm down for that. So again, I'm Jason. So that's awesome.
Thanks, Jason. Thanks for speaking up. It's a little trickier in this format. Otherwise, you know, normally around this time we'd be networking in the room, and then you'd have a few people that are, you know, to chat with.
I'll put my info in the chat box if anyone wants to chat.
Yep.
Can I just an aside?
Yeah,
People
Ivan,
have used the
Sean
term.
Impey here.
Oh. Go ahead, Sean.
Go ahead.
I got a couple of private investors who've some money coming back, and they're looking for opportunities to lend it out. So people are looking for money that has to private. I got some available for right deals, so people can Google me if they know my name. You can find my contact information. I'll put it in the chat as well.
Thanks, Sean.
I got something. Got a property for sale in, what the heck is that? Elmwood. 1,050 square feet, totally renovated, up, great for a basement suite. We reduced the price here. I'd like to get that going. Also like to say here, I mean, opportunities are still out there for the wholesale. We just did a townhouse, wholesaled it within a week of getting it. The other thing is, if anybody has any eavesdropping that they need on their properties, I also have an eavesdrop company. That's it.
Thanks, Kurt.
What does wholesaling mean? I've heard this term a couple of times. What does that mean?
Is that directed to? Take that one, Ivan.
Sure. Well, with wholesaling, you know, basically the investors are marketing, and even I guess some foreclosure deals could fall under this, where you tie up a property, so you have a seller commit to a sale at a price that is at below market value, and you offer it up. Most wholesalers have an email database, and so they have a certain property under contract, and they try to find a buyer for the paper. Essentially, they just buy the deal, and so the wholesaler makes a little spread on the transaction, but basically you're selling your good deal to somebody else to buy.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll go. I don't really have anything to offer, but it's more like a need. Maybe I'll just talk to Sean actually, but I just want to put it out there just in case. I might not need it, but I may need $1 million for like a very short-term loan, like for a month. Probably not, but it's kind of my plan B if things like don't fall through with my property that's closing. So if anyone has some money that they would want to lend out for a short term, then that would be great to give us some bridge financing. Thanks.
Perfect. Anybody got $1 million? Probably me.
I did, but my wife got a hold of it.
She went shopping, did she?
Yeah.
But I mean, in all seriousness, that's what sometimes there is some lending that can happen in the group, and you sit down, you put together terms that are acceptable to both sides, and I've had many clients I've had to fund sometimes a flip renovation with private money, and it works. Anybody else out there?
I can go next. This is Sam Lee here. I used to be Shelley mentor student, so I still very enjoy her presentation. And this is the first time I joined this group meeting, so I'm very happy I'm here to listen to great presentation. I do have a suite house in Millwood coming up next week, mostly from the Realtor, but if someone wants to scoop the deal, then we don't even need to put it up. It's a just fully renovated suite house with 3 bedroom up, 2 bedroom down, and I can offer it for joint venture or just sell it. I do have a few of these houses. I have a lot of experience if you want to joint venture. The house gross rent will be around 2,900, and then the price will be listed at 410.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sam. Put your contact details in the comments if anybody wants to reach out to you. I'll share a couple of items. I have an investor client who is unloading a few investment properties. One is a condo essentially across the street from Nate here in Edmonton, and they purchased it for about $145,000 back in 07. It's been a good rental property. They just need to unload a few things, so just to leave some, I guess, opportunity on the plate. They're selling it for $93,000. They don't have it on MLS. I don't believe it'll make it there. So it's a large 1 bedroom, 750 square feet. Condo fee, I think $348 if I recall. And there's never a shortage of renters in that central Edmonton area. So that's one. Also a property in Mill Woods that they're taking a little bit of a hit on. They purchased it for $170. It's a 2 bedroom, about the same size as this 1 bedroom. Right around 750 square feet. And that one is 99,000. They bought it for 170 about 6 years ago. Again, also a very good rental. Never been an issue renting it out. And then also a property that is for development in the Gold Bar area. It's a corner lot, and it can likely build 2 houses. Not necessarily, and it doesn't have to be skinny houses. It can be full-size houses with shorter yards, but it's the neighbors across the street from it, back onto the ravine. So it's a nice area, and then about 3 houses down and across the street is a park where you can just walk into the river valley. So those are a few. I'll put my email in the chat if you want to reach out to me and get any more information on those. Anybody else out there? All right, well, we got a quiet bunch tonight. Today, everybody was loaded with information from Shelley and ready to hopefully hit the ground running tomorrow, making some offers, doing some deals.
I do have one question for you, Ivan.
Yeah.
A couple months back here, you were looking to put together some kind of page or something where a person can put deals on.
Yeah.
How is that coming along?
It's coming along. Been busy with other projects, so I haven't got back to it. It's about half finished. So that's something I want to work on over the next couple months, as I'm sure things will quiet down. So yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Hey, no problem. Well, if that's all, then we're gonna wrap things up. And everybody can get back to their evening. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to any of us on the board. thanks for coming out, and we'll get information out for next month's meeting. I don't know when we'll be off of Zoom. We can host meetings at the hotel, but it would be in a staggered setup, and the capacity would shrink. So we'll probably hold off for now. Keep everybody safe at home. So if nothing else, and then we'll wrap that up.
I was just going to say, save the chat if you want to save the contacts that are in there. So everyone can save the chat by pushing those dots that are in the typing box, and it'll go into your downloads or into your documents, and it'll be under Zoom files.
It works. It says chat saved. All right. Well, normally Gert would be buying a round of beers, but
why me?
Well, I said normally, not today.
Yeah, I've been very good to you.
Yeah.
Just want to say again, as always, thanks a lot, guys. I mean, the people you have coming on here and the education that this does here for a lot of us here is very much appreciated. I know you guys don't get the recognition you deserve here, but I really appreciate it, and I've benefited a lot from your guys' expertise. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Stay tuned for next month's fun.
Good night.